In a world of remakes and remasters,
Are we playing for
what was once sacred and cool has now soured and become lame.
Red?
Gone are the days of pods and cowabunga. Now is the reign of slurp juice and dabs. Kids these days don't even know how bad they've got it. Now it's up to the best generation to rise to the occasion and make a show that dares to go where a lot of other nerdy shows have already gone quite a bit. That's right. They're going to talk about it a lot. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm checking to make sure everything's okay because there was a glitch during the intro video. Okay, I'm getting feedback because I'm on YouTube. And I'm at the bottom. This is unacceptable.
Hey!
Hello.
How is to glory?
How is everyone doing? Thanks for tuning into the show. Sorry, we apologize for those technical difficulties. We're still figuring some things out for some reason. You know, no matter how long you've been doing this, there's always some glitches. Welcome to the show. The show's called Best Gen. It's where a bunch of nerds complain about nerdy things. The show's called Best Gen because we all happen to be from the same gen, happen to think that it's the best, but we're very accepting and loving of people of all ages. It doesn't really matter when you're born. You're welcome to join the stream, just as long as you could acknowledge that that Discman skip protection was like the greatest technological advancement of all time that only lasted for like 2 years.
Discman what?
Skip protection.
Skip protection.
You had a Discman, right? Yeah. The Discman came out after the Walkman.
Oh, that's the one where it was on your ankle and you had to like jump over it and like.
No.
Hey Tim, can you try and hit echo cancellation? I think we're getting some feedback from your camera specifically.
Oh boy!
It should be if you go to the microphone at the bottom.
It's already on.
Okay.
Cool stuff.
Something's better now. The skip protection. None of you had a Discman?
It's because he's gone. That's why it's better.
Yeah, it's better because he dropped out.
He's offended. He got offended. Is Tim in our generation? Maybe that's why. He just was like,
he is.
This.
He's a little young.
The bottom end of it, yeah.
No. Okay, so Walkman was the things that had the cassettes, if you remember those, the cassette players, and then Discman played discs, and they were awful because anytime if you tapped it lightly, what a great time to come back up.
Y'all are welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
We got a nice view of Tim's crotch. Okay, so Discmans would play discs, which were obviously better than cassettes. But if you bumped them at all, they would skip, and you couldn't hear it. But then they came out with this amazing technology where if you got a more expensive Discman, it would read ahead and like download like a portion of the song, like about 30 seconds so that if you skipped it, it would just play the downloaded version and it would keep reading. It was a genius technology. It was groundbreaking. And then like a year later, they came out with MP3 players.
Yep.
But it was the coolest
Probably
technology
from that
ever.
invention,
It was
actually.
genius. So
Yeah, I remember having the portable CD players. Those were fun.
Yep.
And yeah, the good old days. We moved quickly through technology. We moved really quickly through technology.
hello to SG in the chat. If you haven't read these books, you might get some spoilers for you, but definitely read them because they are some of my favorite books I've ever read. So, going from cassette games to floppy disks was probably the greatest thing ever. Yeah, I remember floppy disk games.
Oh boy.
It's like the DOS games,
Oh yeah.
floppy disk games.
Gorillas.
So great. Gorillas, yeah, with the bananas.
Yeah.
Worms was
Okay.
a big one.
Okay, why did the bananas explode though?
Why not?
Reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, like
It's the potassium, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
uh,
Well, now that we've waxed nostalgic proper, so tonight's show is a special episode. We're not talking about television because screw that. Although we could talk about Sandman that came out on Netflix, which I'm not paying for anymore. We're talking about the Kingkiller Chronicles. You can see I have a fancy new background for this episode only. You've got a little quote right there looking at is this the university? I think so. I just downloaded the first one I saw. We're talking about the Kingkiller Chronicles, The Name of the Wind, The Wise Man's Fears, and our predictions and thoughts for the series and Doors of Stone. And has anyone read the Slow Regard for Silent Things, the little mini thing? I have not read it yet. I own it, and I'm saving it. The second that there is a publication date for book 3, I will listen to the Slow Regard of Silent Things.
okay.
Like
I feel that.
I feel like if I start it, I'll just get sad again. So
Okay. Okay.
So we've all read most of the books. David, my brother, has only read the first book, so we're going to kick him out halfway through the stream and then go full on spoilers. But how's everybody doing? So David's a regular on the show. Jared's a regular on the show. You know him, and I don't know if you love him. But we're also joined by Nathan, who's been on the show a long time ago when we talked Wheel of Time, and is back. It's been like half a year, probably.
Yeah.
And first time, we're also joined by Tim. And they're all
already met my crotch, so
these are they're all brothers and / my cousins, and only David is a real brother. So it's so Kingkiller Chronicles. This is your fault. You guys got me to read the books.
I remember that.
I remember that day. We were at a park.
Yeah.
We were at a park for some reason. I don't know what we were doing there, but your older brother was playing Frisbee.
Mhm.
Why were we there?
I think it was like Labor Day or something like that, or a birthday.
Yeah, did we?
was
Is
his
this
birthday,
park up the
wasn't it?
canyon? Was this park up the canyon?
I don't
It
know.
was like
We were at a park,
Provo
someone
or
was playing-
Orem Canyon. Yeah.
I think it's the one that was like across from Bridalveil Falls. That one.
I don't know. All I know is that all of the losers were playing Frisbee, and we were the cool kids sitting in the corner talking about books.
Okay, that's pretty hard
And
to
you,
call me a
and you guys
loser,
were like, you have to read the Kingkiller Chronicles. And well, Jared had spent like an hour trying to explain like the color-based magic system for Lightbringer. And I was like, this sounds so stupid. Like,
That's so good though.
It really is good.
I realize they're good books. They are on my TBR. I'm going to read them eventually. But the way that Jared explained it was not good. And then
They're colors and they're magic. It's a rainbow.
Yeah.
It's like Rainbow Bright over here is basically.
then someone said I needed to read the Kingkiller, and they're like, no, it's like so good. And I'm like, it sounds like another fantasy book, which I love fantasy. That's pretty much exclusively what I read. But I'm like, can it really be that good? And you guys made me do it, and didn't tell me that he hadn't written book 3 in like 10 years.
Well, you can't tell somebody that if you want them to read the books, though.
We purposely
true.
don't tell people that.
I know.
SG, don't listen for a second.
In
These are
fact,
definitely
Christina,
all-
we
all
told
written.
Christina.
Oh, this is definitely a finished series.
We tried to get Christina to read them, and I couldn't. I wouldn't tell her either because Christina's one who
And now
like.
she's mad at us
She-
because
No.
she's
She
obsessed.
fully asked me. She fully asked me if it was finished, and I was like, "Yeah. All the books are out. All the books are out. Go ahead and read it." It has an ending. I was like, "Yes, it has an ending. You'll love it."
You're terrible.
Each book does end. Yes.
Yes,
book
each
does
book
end.
does it.
Yeah.
Yes.
He hates us now. Yeah.
Go from the first page
You
to
just
the last
go at it.
page.
Yeah. So you convinced me to read the book, and I mean, I'd read a lot of Sanderson, and I love Sanderson. I think he's one of the greatest living authors right now, just with because of his sheer willpower of writing. Like Sanderson is like a pulp fiction guy, you know. It is super entertaining, and it's like campy, but like really good quality pulp, like Star Wars, you know. And then I read and then I read the Kingkiller Chronicles, and I was like, this is different. This is not fantasy. This is poetry.
Yeah.
And I was shocked at the quality of the writing, the prose. I mean, just the opening chapter, just listening to the prologue makes me cry. And it's repeated like 4 times because it's at the beginning and the ending of each of the 2 books, with just little twists on but it's so poetic.
The silent parts.
Silence,
And then it's obviously going to be in the 3rd one as well. If I don't know if you guys watched the broadcast, that he did, but he actually read the very beginning of it, and it's very similar as well. So.
Yes, Brandon. I accidentally wrote 5 books Sanderson. Yes.
Oh boy.
Yep.
So here's my like general non-spoiler take on Kingkiller Chronicles. He may not be your like favorite author, but I think it's really hard to deny that he is probably the most skilled author currently out there. Like just his ability to write prose. I can't even find a lot of stuff that compares to what I've read in these books. Now, there's obviously different levels. Like Brandon Sanderson can obviously write books faster, right? So, but when it comes to like just prose, I think he's the best.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would also though add to maybe like Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman.
Oh, Neil Gaiman is amazing.
Well,
Yeah,
I've read a lot. I've read a lot of Terry Pratchett now. I don't think his expertise was on prose. Terry Pratchett
comedic.
could write a biting satire, and he's really good at puns. But he was. It's more lighthearted and just super charming. If you haven't read,
Good Omens.
Well, yeah, Good Omens is Terry Pratchett and Neil
Neil
Gaiman
Gaiman.
collaborating. But no. Why can't I? Sorry, Terry Pratchett wrote all of Discworld, which is great. Going Postal. If you haven't read Going Postal, that is one of the best books I've ever read. But we're talking about Rothfuss.
But
I don't know how we got so far off there. Ooh.
sorry.
So I would agree with you, bro. I think Patrick Rothfuss writes some of the best prose, and like you said, it's almost like poetry. But not only that, there were several times when I was reading the first book that I was just impressed with how well his dialogue flowed.
Yeah.
Like his conversation is just so natural, and it's something that I don't get in a lot of other books. Just the back and forth between Quoth and his some of his colleagues at the university, or with him and Dinah or whatever. Some of that conversation was just like really, really well done. Especially the witty banter back and forth. It's just like, just chuckling and like, I don't know, it was just so natural and it flowed so well.
Yeah, Rothfuss is a perfectionist, which is a blessing and a curse. Because it's taken him a long time to finish the series. But when it's finally out there, it's going to be a good book. I already know it. And yeah, this is a good comment. Pratchett's skill was puns and wordplay, but working it into the story in a way that doesn't break your suspension of disbelief. Like he would throw in jokes that was obviously a joke, but elevated the story instead of taking you out of it. Yeah. So I'm a Patrick Rothfuss apologist. There's a lot of people who've lost hope in book 3 ever coming out, because he's they're very frequently compared to Game of Thrones author George R. Martin. But I think that Rothfuss is in a very different position, because the first book took him 10 years to write. It was in his spare time, like, perfecting this book. He originally wrote all 3, right? He wrote the whole story, all 3 books, and then fine-tuned the first book, and it got released, and he got super lucky with that publishers picked it up. It's not all luck because of his obvious skill, but even then, sometimes great books don't get good publicity. He got super lucky, and then was forced to, oh shoot, I have to do the rest of these. And how long did it take him to do book 2? Was it 4 years, 5, or 6?
I think it was like 8. It was still quite a big difference. It wasn't.
Yeah, I don't believe it was 8. I can pull it up, but so it took him a while to do book 2 as well, but it's obviously taken him longer to do book 3. And he's explained it in streams, saying, after the first 2 came out, 2 kind of burned him out because he had to do it so much faster than he did book 1. And he was dealing with mental health. And so he did take a break. He said that, like, yeah, there were times I was not working on book 3, and it ate him up inside. Right.
But looking at the release date, Name of the Wind came out in 2007.
Yeah.
And then The Wise Man's Fear was 2011. So it's 4 years. But that's from the publication date, Yeah. So
but imagine going from a passion project to all of a sudden being one of super famous and having to get the next one out. Like, he totally burned him out. And so and the other problem is even though he's already written the story with books 1 and 2, when he fine-tuned them, he obviously added a lot of stuff. He added a lot of characters and a couple new pieces. And so since he's such a perfectionist, fitting, it's still going to go through the same steps, but he has to get a bunch of new pieces woven into this ending. And I'm sure there's also an element of fear involved, of like, oh no, it's not good enough, I got to keep tweaking it. But I'm pretty sympathetic that it's taken 10 years to do book 3. But if it doesn't come out soon, I might start getting impatient.
It doesn't matter how much of an apologist you are after 10 years. It's like, come on!
But recently there have been very, very encouraging developments, because in the past he has not been willing to talk about it at all. And as we all know, he's recently been talking about book 3 a lot, and he even read the prologue to book 3 on stream, and he's going to eventually release a voice actor live read of one of the chapters. That's moving slower than he wants, because he has to get a bunch of people involved. But
yeah. No, I do have faith that he'll come out with the last book. And we've talked about this on the show previously, but with George R.R. Martin, I don't think
it's different there.
I don't think he has any incentive, honestly, to finish the last book.
No,
because
he's also
the show
significantly
ended,
older.
but also the show ended the last season, and lots of people were disappointed. The majority of the fan base were disappointed with the last season, right?
Mm.
So that is an enormous amount of pressure on him to be able to fix the ending. People are always going to compare it to the show, and and they already have an ending. So
we know that the ending of the show is how he ended the books.
Right.
It's just the way that the show got there was disappointing because they rushed it.
Yeah.
And George R.R. Martin has also always been more comfortable writing TV. That's what he's always wanted to do. And now with the prequel, I don't think he's ever going to finish those. But
so now he's got a whole bunch of other stuff on his plate. The prequel, he's got.
There's two prequels. Now. They're doing House of the Dragon. Yeah, he didn't really do a whole lot in Elden Ring, but the House of the Dragon is out now, and then now they're doing a Jon Snow prequel too, and
he's just got so much going on, and just because of how the last season was received of the regular show, I don't think he has any incentive whatsoever to finish that last book. But Patrick Rothfuss, on the other hand, he doesn't have anything.
If he doesn't finish, his legacy will be severely tarnished.
Exactly. But yeah, and like I said, it's the last installment in the whole trilogy. So he's got to make sure that all the ducks are in a row, everything's perfect, and he delivers a satisfying ending to the story. So
okay, let's talk about book one, David. What did you think? Because we have stronger opinions, so I want to hear yours first.
Gotcha. So I really liked book one. Like I've already talked about his prose and his dialogue and everything. I think another thing he does really well is some of my favorite chapters were when he was in the cart riding along with what's the name of his
Abinthy.
Yeah,
Abinthy.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite chapters. He was just riding in the cart and just talking about sympathy and learning this magic and stuff. And
my favorite parts of the book is when he's in school learning how magic works.
Yeah. And so that what he learns in school obviously builds upon that.
But it's so logical. You're like, oh yeah, of course that's how magic would work.
Yeah, but my point is the way that he the way that he learns this magic from Abinthy, and then in the university when he actually puts it in practice, like when he takes control of the or he gives the lecture from that one teacher, and he uses sympathy to burn it. You understand exactly what he did because of what was
because it spent 3 chapters explaining how the magic works,
and then
when he actually uses it in an action scene, and you're going to reference the fight with the dragon.
Yeah, exactly.
The fight with the dragon is the Dracus, right? The Dracus.
No dragon.
I'm sorry, this is just who I am. I'm like,
Truly.
No, but you're right. That's the same thing. When he fights the Dracus, it describes the actions that happen, and you're like, oh, I understand exactly what he's doing.
It doesn't even tell you, like, it doesn't even say Quoth did this, and then this. It says like he jumped from the building, and all of a sudden, like the wheel fell from the thing, and this thing happened, and you're like, oh, he's using sympathy. Because you know how it works, you know all the steps. It doesn't need to slow down and say, okay, he focused his energy beams on the wheel and it made the wheel crash, and he transferred the energy into the water, which put out the fire. It doesn't need to slow down the action at all because it spent so much time telling you just instinctually know what he's doing.
Which I love that he does that. It's incredible. Absolutely amazing. Because I often lose books. I lose interest in them when it comes to these action-packed scenes and these like really epic scenes, and then there's just explanation in the middle of them. And I'm like, dude, you had such great momentum and you just completely lost me. And Patrick Rothfuss, because of that explanation in the beginning, just allows such seamless epic scenes with no slowing down, no losing of that momentum, and it makes amazing books. I love the way he writes because of it.
The other part too is when he in the fire in the university.
Oh, in the workshop.
Yeah, in the workshop, and that segment, it was like condensed time. Everything happened like in a split second.
Most of that happens or most of what you read about that is after the event,
right?
And people are talking about what happened. Yeah.
Yes. But as he is, he breaks uses the sympathy to break the container of water to douse him, and he runs through, and again, you understand what's happening and how he's using magic, the sympathy to, to be the hero, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was another great example. So I really liked that aspect of it. One thing that I didn't like so much is I was kind of expecting him to be expelled from the university, like at 2/3 away from the book. Like especially when he goes off to
pretty much everyone agrees with you there, David.
Yeah, exactly. He's like,
just wait till you read book 2.
I know. I heard book 2. He's still at the university. I'm like, oh, come on, get on with it, bro. But yeah, like he leaves. He straight up leaves, and is MIA for several days while he's hunting down the Chandran sighting at this wedding massacre. And then he just shows up like several days later. It's like, oh yeah, I was gone, by the way, and he doesn't get expelled for it. I'm like, what? So, but anyways, that's really my only gripe, is that he does spend a lot of time at the university, and I understand he's going to spend more time, which is fine. He still has to learn how the magic works and everything, but it just didn't go the way I expected it. But that's really my only gripe that I can think of.
A lot of people agree. He needs to get out of school. I have mixed feelings on that.
I want him to finish school.
Huh?
Yeah,
that's just me. I'm a completionist.
Honestly,
you got to finish it.
I would be happy if he stays in school for the whole series, right? But
see what?
Obviously, he needs to move on. And that actually goes into one of my theories, which I think I can say here without spoiling any of book 2 for David. Because one of the biggest complaints about the book is that there are so many hints about Quoth's legacy, right? He did all these things, and we haven't seen a majority of them after the first 2 books. And so a lot of people are saying, how is it possibly going to do all these things in just one book? But Rothfuss has said repeatedly that book 3 won't be longer than book 2. It's going to be the same length.
So he actually addressed that as well. In one of his streams, he talked about how book 3 will actually only catch you up to current events.
Yes.
And then the rest of his story will resume in another trilogy.
If he's alive.
That's still a lot, though, to get
I know.
to present from book 2. So
I feel like
my theory is that current day Quoth, or Coat, who's hiding out in the inn, is actually a lot younger than most people assume he is. There are several hints to this in the writing, saying he moves. It looks like he's in an old body, but he kind of moves with the exuberance of youth.
But then there's specific times when it says that
when that demeanor falls on him again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. I think there's reasons. I think there's specific reasons for that, but I think a lot less time has passed than we think, and also the entire nature of the book is him building like a false legacy, right? Like there are things that he does for real and a whole lot of embellishment, and one tiny thing that he does gets blown out of proportion. Like he's bloodless because because he took a thing that made him not bleed, and so he's never bled in public, right? So it's all about him building his own mythos, and so I think there are a lot of things that maybe he wasn't even involved with at all that are attributed to him. But I think that there's plenty of time in book 3 to address the rest of the hints, like that he's people have said I did this and I saved the sleeping princesses from Barrow Kings. I think there's plenty of time to address all those things and still catch up to this in book 3.
Well, you know that he mentions that several times in the story too, how everyone always thinks he's older than he is.
Yeah.
So
yes. It's a parallel. It's when he's a kid, everyone thinks he's older, and when he's older, I don't think he's any different, guys. I think he's like 14. That's
Oh, I just remembered another tiny small complaint that I had.
No more complaints.
No more complaints. It's all good. No,
Kick him out.
The section where he's I completely lost it. Where he's begging in the streets.
Yes.
I thought I liked everything that happened there, but I felt like it didn't show enough of his motivation because he was like, oh, he lost his family, which is like up until that point is like, holy crap. But then he just gives up on everything, and is just begging in the streets
12
for
at
years.
that point, right? How young is he?
But he never, he never expresses any inkling of accomplishing anything in life until all of a sudden it snaps and he's like, hey, I've got to get out of here. I've got to go to the university.
I like that.
I have a note about that actually, because I don't know if they mentioned this in the first book or not, but I feel like there's a little bit alluded to that in maybe the second book, where you kind of realize that he doesn't remember as much about his time in that part of his life in the city, that he kind of like blocked it, or like
because someone asked him a question, right? And it's a conflicting story.
Yeah, or I feel like he actually talks about how there's a moment in the second book where he kind of like starts to glimpse or like starts to realize some things that had happened during that time that you as a reader you hadn't heard about, because he didn't at that point in his life remember that they'd happened. So because I always felt that part was a little weird too, right? He's like this amazing, smart, bright, like prolific genius kid, and then he has a family tragedy and he just like recluses and doesn't even use the stuff that he knows to help him in the city, right? And I always thought that was kind of weird, but it makes sense if not only if you're looking at it from like a trauma perspective, right? Like he experienced some trauma that he's going to deal with, but also that he maybe isn't remembering everything.
Yeah. And that time I think that I'm trying to remember the specific instance when that happens, but there are some hints to what you were saying. But I think even if that's not the case, I like how it's handled, because not only did he experience trauma, he also didn't know what he was supposed to. He didn't have a purpose. So like even with, I think it goes to show that, even the most skilled people, like if you don't have a purpose, if you don't have a reason to live, you can squander your abilities, right?
Yeah, but even then,
and it's not until he meets Scarpy in the inn that jogs his memory. Oh shoot! Like I need to do something.
Right, and I like that, but the problem is up until the point that his parents died, he got the book from Abinthy that was inscribed, his little thing. See, and he had the conversation with his parents.
I'm right. This happens to real people. Okay.
I understand.
SG, thanks for using your pain to prove my point.
My point is, before the traumatic event with all of his family and troop was being murdered, he was planning to go to the university, and he talked with his parents. That was the plan. He said goodbye to Abinthy, and he was fully planning on going to the university. And then after this traumatic moment, he just forgets all of that. And I understand.
How many times does it happen in real life, right? We make plans, and then your parents die, and then you have to take care of your. You have to take care of your
that happened to
siblings.
me just yesterday.
Right? Yeah.
Oh shoot!
No.
No, but that's a pretty common trope in storytelling where like, oh, I wanted to go off and be successful and go to college, but then my parents died and I had to take care of my younger siblings and be the head of the household and I had to put those plans off, right?
I agree, and that makes sense, but he didn't have one to take care of but himself. He was just there.
That's true.
And he also doesn't use any of his knowledge. Though.
Yeah, exactly. He spent lots of time practicing under the tree trying to play his lute and broke his strings, which I love how that came back at the end. That was really cool.
Right?
So good.
Chef's kiss.
What you know? What's crazy? Patrick Rothfuss doesn't know anything about music.
Wow.
He's admitted. He's like, I am not a musician.
Yeah.
And the music scenes are some of the best parts of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it's so good, because he doesn't know anything about music.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an outside perspective of music.
Maybe.
Almost.
I don't know. But yeah, that was just a little bit of disconnect. Is just he didn't try to use. I was waiting for him to use sympathy on this against the street kids, or something. But he just like puts all of that along with the memories, and just like builds a mental wall, between it, and then he never uses it until he realizes that he remembers the past from the storyteller, which I like, and he realizes that those painful memories aren't as painful anymore, and he can heal and move past them, and he goes to university, which is fine. I just, like you said, Nathan, I wish he used that knowledge. He just completely forgets about it. It's like a completely separate
it's almost
chapter of the story or something.
Again, I don't know if this is in the second book, but it's kind of like he has his personality's like fractured, right? Like he goes into survival mode where he's a totally different person, and then he kind of like slowly comes out of that and becomes himself again, which alludes to things that happen, and we kind of hint at
in his current
becoming coped. Yeah, exactly. Right. He has a third persona now at this point where it's maybe more intentional, but it's the same sort of thing. So
I also think his time in that city, I should know the name of the city. His time in that city also is important to explaining.
Or no, that's the
Deemaroo.
But his time in that city is also important to explaining a lot of his skills, because he learns to survive on the street and become a fighter.
Yeah,
and so he's not. A lot of people call him a Mary Stew. No, what's the
a Mary Stew?
No,
a Gary Stew.
A Gary Stew. A lot of people call him a Gary Stew, and I don't think that is true at all. I think that it repeatedly talks about how much he struggles, and he hyper focuses on his weaknesses so much until he overcomes them. But his fighting prowess, which comes more into play in the book 2, but also his just regular street smarts. I think his time in that city is pretty important to his development.
I agree, it's important to his development. I just wish that he would have brought in some of the sympathy stuff that he had learned in there. Instead, he just completely.
Although the last time he did use sympathy, he almost killed himself.
Yeah.
Right.
So that could be another block there as well.
True, but after that, he continues to learn, and and he was given the book by Abinthy, and he still planned on going to university. So it's not like he had given up his hope of learning more about sympathy. I don't know.
So I don't remember if it is book 1 or book 2 that he mentions it, but he does actually talk about how like the different levels of like sleep, or the different levels of like pain almost, and how certain things in his memories or certain things in people's lives are only recollected through pain, or like kind of brought back up through pain. And it kind of reiterates back what Nate was saying, is that, he just lost his family. He just barely, he's coping by literally forcing himself to practice on the flute every day, until he gets so good at it that he can play with broken strings, and then he gets to this city where there's hundreds of
Tarbian,
people.
by the way. I looked it up.
Tarbian, thank you.
Tarbian. Yeah, I was gonna say I almost said Temerant. I was like, no, that's the whole world.
I knew it started with a T, but I
Country.
couldn't remember.
Yeah, I think I was saying Terabon, but I'm like, that's Wiltime. That's not.
Tarbian.
But he basically gets
yeah.
to
how
the
this is in the
city
audio.
with hundreds of people and families, and is just reminded once again, hey, your family's dead. You're alone in this world, And I think it's kind of just a way for him to kind of shrink back to a younger self of him, where he was that kind of just child who doesn't know anything about the world, who is literally just trying to function, doesn't care about sympathy or going to university.
Yeah.
Because of such a traumatic thing in his life.
His hopes and dreams were stolen from him.
Yeah, I mean, his entire family was murdered by the Chandrian.
He lost his daddy's loot.
I'm remembering too. I wish I had reread this like sooner.
We've been talking about doing this for like 6 months.
Yeah, for
right?
like 6 months.
And then we finally set on a date, and I was like, do I have time to reread both of them? And I realized it's like 80 hours. And I'm like, if I stopped making YouTube videos, I could do it.
You got to do it. In my last reread, not only there's a few interesting things. First of all, like he uses the door motif a ton.
Yes.
So with the Doors of Stone being the third book, there's like so many things that could be. It's like crazy how many things. But I'm remembering like a
other
moment
than the big obvious thing.
Yeah, the 4-plate door, which is
might not be those doors.
I don't think it's that door though. Let's be honest. I really don't think it's that door.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're
okay. But what I was trying to say, I'm sorry, is
that 80 hours is if you listen to the audiobooks on regular speed,
which you should.
40
SG,
hours
if
each.
you've got the time, the audiobooks are spectacular.
Oh my, Nick Podell,
so good. Nick Podell.
Holy crap! The way he does accents is insane. Okay,
yeah. You can literally tell he's talking just by his accent. No dialogue needed.
Nathan was talking about doors or some crap.
It's fine. I wanted to say, okay, as he's going to Tarbian, I remember this, as he's traveling, right? He's like learning the loot, all these things. There's several times where he talks about how he goes through or he puts aside things, doors or like places in his mind, right? He puts things aside. He forgets
he
them.
compartmentalizes.
He literally compartmentalizes. Yeah. So I guess it does make more sense, again, that he wouldn't use those things. But I remember reading it and thinking like...
Are you saying I'm right? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh.
Well, can I
right.
add something? So what I actually kind of like that he didn't add that, because I think, to be honest, if I were to read a story where he literally just had his he's doing all of this learning, and then all of a sudden his parents are killed, and then he goes
well, I guess I could go to the university now.
Yeah, right. I think that it works out a lot better that way.
It would be almost as offensive as accidentally killing your wife with an axe and then going on an adventure. I'm gonna go run with the wolves now.
Unless they were maybe a dark friend. Was that what it was? Was that what we decided?
I think the internet decided that his wife is a dark friend, even though it's one of the stupidest theories I've ever seen. Anyway, it's because when she was holding the axe above her head when she got axed, but it's because there was a Trolloc there too.
Yeah. Okay. We can't go on that for sure. We can't jump into that. Because don't
pull me into that.
3 hours of Island. You can't do that, okay? But what I'm thinking though is that, like, honestly, just the fact that he wasn't, because here's the thing: the reason why you love Kvothe so much is because he's really good at this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But he's just like really good at learning, essentially.
Right.
He's a lifelong learner. He's always so
And so it's kind of nice to see that there's times where he's not necessarily learning, and he's not like this super OP learner, which is kind of funny to say it like that, right?
Yeah. I hate it so much. And a bunch of people who've talked about the book say, "Oh, he's just a Gary Stu. He just does he's good at everything." And I'm like, that's the point of the books. Like, he's good at everything because he hates being not good at things.
Yeah, but and so I think that this part really does play into that, because it's like, look, like, maybe he did take a couple years off to just kind of, experience.
Yeah, took a sabbatical,
life and to grow up.
It was his gap year.
Plus, let's be honest here. That scene with him teaching that class would not have been as epic if he was whooping kids in this city 5 years ago. Let's be honest, right?
I mean,
up
until that point, he was like moving coins around, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And then he accidentally like swallowed the sky.
I mean, that's an interesting way of putting it, but yeah.
Like, he knew the principles, but he never practiced like combat sympathy, which really it's not a super like combative skill.
It really isn't. And I mean, the first time he really uses it is when he uses like the silver or the magnesium and he like lights it to get away from the robbers.
The lightning,
so they like say he called down lightning. So like even with him being a sympathy master, not even a master, but like insanely fluent in this skill, he still, almost gets robbed and he still barely makes it out with his life. I mean, what resources would you have liked him to use while he's in this alley getting stomped on by a 10-year-old? Like, I don't know what, like, you want him to just like hover a rock like he's using the force all of a sudden? Like, I don't know what, I just don't see what he can do.
SG, he messes up a magic thing that he's trying and he almost kills himself.
He basically neutralizes the negative pressure in his lungs and then can't breathe.
He collapses a lung.
It's explained very scientifically.
But swallow this guy actually is like
swallow this guy.
I like that.
So even if, regardless of whether or not you liked his time in Tarbean, the way he gets out of Tarbean is so freaking awesome.
That's the one where he pretends to.
He pretends to be a spoiled noble and just steals a bunch of clothes.
The shop, he's like, my father. So good.
And then he sells his book to the pawn shop.
That's such a good scene. He has him write it. He's like,
but then he meets Then he does meet that nice guy who gives him some shoes.
The shoemaker. I was just gonna say, some of the charm of these books is like, no matter there's
still some good
things,
out there.
no matter how many awful things, like the Chandrian, like all these horrible things are happening, and he meets these awful people. There's always these moments where he meets someone and they're just genuinely good people, like the shoemaker,
or freaking Sim. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Wow. Alan has feelings.
Sim is the best side character, okay?
You just made that noise when he said
his poetry is too good.
I
don't think David knows about Sim's poetry yet.
Oh no, that's second book.
I didn't recognize that character, but
one of his friends from the university.
His friends at the university are pretty cool. Is that one of them?
Sim's closest friend from the university, yeah.
Okay. I don't remember because there's a
lot of them.
Oh, yeah. Never mind. I remember. I've read a couple books since then, so it's been a while.
How dare you go off and read other books?
The one and only
How
book.
dare you go off and read other books before rereading the Kingkiller Chronicle?
The other books are Brandon Sanderson, all right? I'm reading the Alloy of Law, or the second one, Shadows of Self.
I don't understand how you put down the first book and thought, I don't want to pick up the second one. Like, what's going through your mind right now?
The problem was, I own the first book. I don't own the second book. So I needed another book to read, and I couldn't borrow the book from my brother yet. So I had to pick up another book and read it.
Some book is better than no book.
I'll give it to you.
But, yeah. Another thing I did want to bring up is I really liked no more criticisms. No more criticisms.
It's not that modern day, but
yeah, it was not modern day as far as responding to chat.
Yeah.
No, it's high fantasy. It's a completely new world.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I forgot what I was going to say. I liked at the very end, or near the end, in the real time, present day or whatever, when he's telling the story, when the mercenary comes in and fights him or whatever, and then at the very end, You get Bast breaking into the Chronicle's bedroom or whatever and threatening him and say, hey, you need to steer his conversations this way to make him remember the good times or whatever, that his heroic natures. And so I think if you want to talk about theories, I don't know if this is expounded upon in the next book, but I think Bast hired the mercenary to come in and attack them or something to try and inspire him to be heroic. And of course that didn't work because he just stood there with a bottle and didn't do anything. He
started to do something.
He started to do something, but he didn't get to do it. He kind of froze up, and then I think it was the blacksmith's apprentice or something that had to take him out in the end, finish it or whatever.
So
the demon.
They don't really go over this until the second book. But I mean, it's I don't really know how to describe it without saying spoilers, I guess. But he definitely didn't hire this guy.
Really? Okay.
Well, because it wasn't a regular guy; it was a skin dancer.
Yeah, he's basically from like the Fey world.
It was a demon. Do they possess real people, or do they just look like real people? I think they take over bodies.
They
possess them.
Because they were the mercenaries from before, weren't they?
Yes, it was the mercenaries that robbed the chronicler previously, killed by a skin dancer, and then showed up to do something. And they say some words to Quoth that are interesting.
Yeah. So is that skin dancer thing explained in the next book, or did I just miss that? Because I didn't catch that.
I thought he explains it afterwards. I thought Bast goes on and explains that it wasn't a normal human and that this is from the Fey world. I thought that was in the first.
Or is that the second one? In the first one, they just have the mercenaries.
Oh no,
because
you
stop that right now.
We'll just
Nathan.
say that
you don't say no more.
We'll just say that David was pretty close.
I was going to say that's an interesting theory, though.
David's intuition was pretty close. It was just the wrong book.
Wrong book, yeah.
Okay then. Anyways, another thing I did notice, we did mention this at one point, but I believe there was a point in the first book that Chronicler asks Quoth to clarify something or asks him a question about something he'd already told him. And he tells that part of the story again, but it's a little bit different than when he first told it. So there's a little bit of unreliable narrator type of thing going on. So I think that'd be interesting to see if that continues through the rest of the books.
Well, that's actually what I love about this story and I think that's like the main thing that really drives me to the story is that literally the story is being told as a story, right? So it's like it's an innkeeper that's telling this story and he's changing it. And like Nathan was saying earlier, like, it's kind of like, okay, what am I going to tell the chronicler versus what am I not telling him? Right? Like he literally straight up tells the chronicler at the first, he's like, okay, I need 3 days and I'm going to tell it how I want to tell it. And like, you can't interrupt me, right? Like I've got to tell it the way that I want to tell it. And
keep going.
Yeah, I love that, and I really think that's actually. So first off, I have to say, David, that I'm kind of disappointed that instead of saying, "Okay, this book is so good, I got to read the second book," you said, "Okay, what you should have said is, okay, this book was so good, I got to read it again right now."
Really, that's a good option.
Because really, this book is good the first time, but as soon as you read it the second time, you're like, oh my
There's
God.
so many little nuances you pick up on the second time and the third time. Oh my gosh.
Rothfuss has said,
and the 6th time and the 8th
and the 28th time.
He said he wrote these books for the reread, not for the first reading. They're bet you pick up on a bunch of details the second time that you can't get the first time through. I wanted to quickly mention the Sword of Shannara. I haven't read those, but I did get to watch that incredibly faithful adaptation. Was it the CW? So really liked those.
I will say I read those when I was 12.
I tried to.
The first of them, and that was the first time I actually don't know how far you are in this, so this might be a spoiler. So if you don't want to hear it, disappear. But that was the first time that I read a fantasy story that was basically set in the far, far future of our own modern day. That it was fantasy, but you don't realize that.
It's like post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, it's like post-apocalyptic, and we're in this fantasy world now. And that was the first time I'd ever.
And all of a sudden, there are elves and demons.
Yeah. Now I see it everywhere, but that was the first I'd ever heard it.
Jared, what were you saying before that? You were talking about the
unreliable narrator, basically. Like I just love that because it really does. I mean, and that also goes into the great thing about that is that it also leads into so many theories, right? Because like for example, Nathan read a theory last time we talked about this a couple months ago, where he's like, is Coat really even Kavoth? Like just like there's so many things that like okay, maybe Coat is trying to tell the story of Kavoth, like so there's so many things where all of a sudden you're like, okay, because this is an unreliable narrator, is this really the person that we think it is?
Well, the most unreliable thing about the narration is that it supposedly takes place over the course of 24 hours, and the audiobook is 40 hours long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like there's no way that you could tell this story in 24 hours, let alone have someone write it down and take breaks.
Well, yeah, and you know that they sleep for 10 hours, but my headcanon is that when he starts speaking, it goes into like you know how you say, I'm going to tell you the story of this, and then it fades into the actual scene, and it like elaborates. So that's like my head. Once he starts talking, time slows down.
The other thing too, though,
but he's not actually saying all of these things word for word.
The other thing too in this story is I don't think time is the same as it is on our Earth.
Ooh,
there's a couple things that hint to that.
They do
in their
take
time
several breaks throughout
because
the day.
they do. Well, they say especially that their equivalent of a week is called a span, right?
There are 8 days to a week, or no, I think there's more because the 8th. I forget how many days.
They specifically call it a span in this thing, and there was one particular line that they said it was almost 2 span, and 9. It was like over. The way it equivalated was like a span was 10 days instead of 7 days.
A span
so like
is
9.
A
week, 9. Yeah. So that's something I picked up on. It's like their time is different. Like a week is 9 days. So maybe a day is more than 24 hours. Just a thought.
Yeah, that's true.
I never caught that.
I never caught that. That's really good.
Yeah. It never says there are 9 days to the week, but there are frequent references to the 8th day, which is Fell. Fell is the 8th day of the week, and so it's different.
Yeah.
One of the things though is I've never really felt like he's an unreliable historian though with this, because I think the scene that you're referring to is the part where he tells the chronicler to rip the page out and start over.
Yeah,
no,
and I think it's because it got to a point where like it got a little bit too deep for him. Like he got to a part where he didn't want to share like something that was too personal, and I think that's why he did it. Not to just change the story, make himself look better, but just because it got to a personal level for him all of a sudden, and he didn't want to go further into that.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I love that part too. But there's a different part later on when they're not writing anything down. They're done writing.
Yeah,
and the chronicler asks Quoth a question or just specify something or whatever, and he reiterates the story that he's already told, but there's a couple details in there that's a little bit different. I don't remember where it was, like I said, but there was some point that I remember there, like, oh, that was not quite the way he told it the first time, and it was different from the time.
Which is actually often proof that a story is true.
Yeah.
In court, at least, if you have several witnesses who give the exact same story, you know that there's corroboration and they memorized it.
Yeah,
I get confused because when they first introduced the chronicler, they talk about how he wrote the book on the modern Drakis, right?
Yeah.
But then I feel like they allude to the fact that the chronicler was at the university after Kavoth.
Yes, he showed up at the university after Kavoth.
But then Kavoth reads that book at the university when
the
he's
chronicler
there. So I'm
is
like,
older. The chronicler is older than Quoth, though. He was writing books before he went to the university. He went to the university for the library, not to learn magic.
maybe that's what it is. I just remember every time I read it, I'm like, wait, who?
Yeah.
What?
He probably studied a little bit of magic, but he's a historian, so he was around long before Quoth.
Oh, he definitely
but his
studied
time at the
magic.
university was after.
He slaps that piece of iron on the table and he binds
he knows
the bat.
full names.
Yeah, so he knows a little bit of magic. Yeah, but he wasn't like a student there, like studying to be a magician, right? Or a sympathist.
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 Yeah.
There's so many things about this book. I'm like, I definitely
Is it the first or the second book that he jumps off the tower? Like he falls backwards?
What's the first one?
No, that's this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the first one? That's my favorite scene of the whole book.
Yeah,
He's trying to get Master Elodin.
What will it take for you to teach me? Jump.
No,
You idiot!
only a crazy person would do that. I can't teach you. It's like,
Yeah, that's great.
Literally my favorite part of the whole
Alone
book.
is one of the best characters, though. He really
yeah,
is.
he's so good.
He's so
And then he's like, "Can you get into this door?"
Yeah.
Questions you should have asked. Why don't I have a key to my own door?
Wait, why are you doing this? Oh, because I hate him.
Yeah.
That was my favorite line in the whole series. Is like, why are you burning down Professor so-and-so's?
Hems. I think it's Professor Hem.
Professor
Master Hem.
Why are you
Yeah,
burning
Master
down
Hem.
Master Hem's rooms? Oh, because I hate him.
Yeah, he's great. That might be the
That was
second
pretty
book, though. So, oops.
I also love that he writes the song Jackass.
Yes.
Jackass.
Yeah, that was so good. And then all the students at the university are humming it and stuff, and he's like,
My favorite part is when he gets pulled to the horns and they're like talking about it, and while they're
Loaded
basically finding him about it, Eloded is literally humming it and the side.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
so good.
the him getting his strings. No,
His pipes.
His pipes.
Yeah.
Him getting his pipes is like just the best example of how to do setup and payoff, because the losing his string, and there's teeny little hints that Ambrose was doing a sympathy. It doesn't even that's the beauty of his writing. He doesn't even need to say, "Oh, I'm pretty sure Ambrose cut my string." He just adds teeny little details where Ambrose was concentrating under the table, and then he says that the string was a straight cut, and you're like, "Oh." You connect the dots yourself. He doesn't need to hold your hand. And you say, "Oh, Ambrose used sympathy to cut the string because he was jealous."
The same thing that he
because that's what he would do because Ambrose is despicable. But him playing anyway without the strings is just ooh,
So good.
Yeah, so good.
So good.
chef's kiss. That's how you. Set things up and then
what's
pay them
funny
off.
about this is I legit was so excited about that scene, and I was like, my fiance had been reading it, and I was like, Emmy, did you read that scene? And she was like, yeah, it was okay, and I was like,
And then for it to be
that's okay.
Who joins in, and it's like
Yeah,
it really
it's
is masterful. It's so well done.
Talk about sharing these books with spouses. I think obviously men like these books better because so my wife, she read the book and I was like, "What do you think?" I'm like she reads books fast and often so fast that she doesn't pick up on details. She just reads it to I need to know how it ends, right? And then also I'll go back and talk. What do you think about this? She's like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that." And you're like, "What?"
Yeah.
But I'm like, "What do you think of the book?" He's like, "It was okay. I didn't like the ending though. Like the ending where he fights a dragon, like the Dracus." He's like, "Yeah, it just felt really disconnected from the rest of the story." And I was like,
because
but he goes on an adventure and he applies all of the knowledge that he learned throughout the whole book. That's the perfect way to end the story. He's like, yeah, but I don't know. I just liked it. I just liked when he was at school. It felt disconnected. For the ending felt disconnected. I was like, well, you're gonna love book 2.
It's like the 7th Harry Potter book all over again. 7th Harry Potter book all over again.
I was like, you would be perfectly happy if you never left the university, would you? I mean, he never used any of the things that he learned and never had any development.
That's funny.
I mean, Christina read them, though, and she's obsessed now. So
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
this just isn't working out. Yeah, no, she enjoyed the book. I don't think she read the second one because she's upset that they're not finished as well. So
should have lied to her.
Should have lied to her. Exactly.
Should have lied to her.
They're all done. They're definitely done.
They're
all
completely
finished.
done.
Yep.
It's a fantastic happy ending.
Each book has an ending.
I just couldn't believe that she didn't enjoy the climax of the book. Like,
I mean, as climaxes go, let me rephrase that. As endings
I've had some good climaxes. You want to compare?
As endings go,
Nathan, was this climax as good for you as it was for me?
You know what?
Okay. You guys, wow.
As endings go, I like the ending of the second one better. Like, I don't love this ending because I do feel like it. I love these books and I don't have any criticism for them. I truly don't. Which I'm the most critical person you'll ever meet. So that is something to say. Okay.
I like how dark the ending of the second one is. It's less. It's not. It's like barely any action, but the implications are like ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a good. Oh, the second book. I can't wait till we start talking about that one. Oh,
yeah. I can't wait till David gets out of this.
Yeah, get out of here.
Get out of here, bud.
I can't wait till I borrow it from you, bro.
Okay, but talking about the first book, we've talked a lot about like how good it is, but I also have to say that
it's fair. It's a fair point. It's fine. Go ahead.
I also have to say that I am very happy that he came out with the 10-year anniversary edition. Because I have gotten several copies of that book because I've given it all my copies away every time I get it. I'm like, here you go. You gotta read this. But
It's a great last-minute birthday gift. If you don't have a birthday gift for someone, you just give them that gift.
Yeah.
Or Christmas.
The illustrations are really good.
It's also a great gift to give to your enemies because they'll hate you.
This is definitely finished. Here, read this.
Definitely tell them it's finished.
Yeah, but like I love that anniversary edition. So if you are thinking about getting the printed copy of this book, get the 10th anniversary because there's illustrations throughout too. So there's like cool things that were illustrated. And there's a thing about from the author too at the end too, where literally he just like talks about the book for like pretty much a chapter or two. Like they're really good.
Here's my thing with books though. I think that hardback covers are beautiful, but when I'm reading a book, I prefer paperback.
I agree with that.
So like I feel like hardback are for like collector's items. But I don't enjoy holding a hardback and reading. But I also frequently just do I frequently just do audiobooks anyway. So
yeah, and the audible book is really good too. But like if you're thinking of getting a physical one, that's the one to get.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Jared just got paid to say that. They sponsored this, apparently.
It's hard to say no to that stiff hardcover.
Yeah, you know how it is, Nathan. I'm paid to advertise so many things.
Next, the HelloFresh commercial. We'll be right back.
Are your books too soft?
Exactly. What are the other ones? There's like a Me Undies that I always hear.
Oh my gosh.
Like the sheath ones that have like a slot for is that sheath underwear, right? That's a thing. That's a brand.
Just now, it was great. Is that Tim? Did Tim score?
Oh, what an embarrassment! Oof.
Yeah. But yeah, so the first book's really good.
Do you struggle from textile dysfunction?
Wow.
Doesn't work as well.
It's so close. It's so close.
I think that's as close as you can get to.
Yeah, I think so too.
Dang, well played.
Throw up SG's last comment. That's
I
good.
know.
If your hardcover takes more than 4 hours to read, consult a doctor.
Oh, I hope Mom's not watching the
Yeah,
show.
I was just thinking.
I was gonna say, this is what happens when you have 5 dudes.
Yeah, but I think it in general, yeah. Most, not that I mean, obviously your sister, my cousin, has read the book and likes it, but a lot of the women I've talked to don't enjoy it as much. Which, I mean, that's fair. The main character is a man and not super likable as a person, but I don't know. I just think that's an interesting point. That's kind of not what we were talking about.
I'll have to get my wife to read it.
I just don't know how anybody could read it and not love it. So
yeah,
it's just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my fiance to do it too, but this is what my fiance did. So she read the first bit, and it's the innkeeper, and she's he's starting to tell a story, and then she skipped to the end.
What? No!
And I was like, girl, like it's not going to tell you anything. All it is it's just like, oh, I'm done with the story. Let's go to bed. So, anyways, she started to read the middle now, but I'm like,
she started in the middle.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Heresy. Yes, I don't understand people that do that. I don't know why you'd date someone like that.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were dating a psychopath. Holy crap, Jared.
Sometimes you can't help who you date.
Does she dog ear the pages too? Is it?
Ooh, no, she hasn't done that. David.
The worst part is I was a librarian for like 5 years. Dude. I still do that. I'm like, these are my books. I don't care.
No,
that's funny.
I totally understand like notes and stuff inside the book if it's your personal copy. Go for it. I mean, I wouldn't do it on that anniversary edition, but
no,
a nice paperback where it's just for me and I like references. Yeah, I could. That's fine.
100%.
David,
anything else you like about it, David?
Yeah.
No, I'm really excited to continue with the series. Like I said, I took a little hiatus. I read the Shadow of the Conqueror by Shad Brooks,
yeah.
and then I started the Wax and Wayne
sequence
second Mistborn trilogy or whatever, or I guess it's going to be more than a trilogy.
Yeah.
But yeah, after I'm done with the third book, I want to go back to and read the second one of the Wise Man's Fear, and then I'll probably reread them right as soon as we get confirmation that the third book is coming out. I'll reread them both.
Yeah.
So I'm a slow reader.
I forgot I was going to mention this.
Infinitely better on a second read, but
100%. But in the it's pretty early on the first book. He makes a reference towards the Doors of Stone. He legitimately says the Doors of Stone.
He does.
And it's in reference to the doors of death that you have to pass through.
Yeah.
It's how he references them. So I wonder if the third book is going to be revolving around something like that.
Him no longer waiting to die?
I don't know. Because he says, I think, like, the woman he loves ends up getting killed or something like that, or like maybe like Denna gets hurt or something like that, and so maybe he does something towards like the Doors of Stone. I don't know.
I don't think it's death. I think Denna betrays his trust and does something.
Because they do imply that she's still alive in the first book at least. Bast was commenting on how she's not really that.
She's not that pretty.
Knockout. Yeah. she's nothing too special. I don't know what you see in her and he kind of
it also could be a reference to the Greystones as well.
Yeah,
because the Doors of Stone in that way. And this is more to the second book as well, so I probably can't talk more about that. Sorry, David, but
sorry.
Yeah. Well, I should get out of your hair so you can keep going on the second book and
any like predictions or anything you got, David? Other than Bast and the guys.
Other than the Bast is trying to either harm Quoth or just put him in danger in order to inspire him to be a hero or to get something from him. I don't know. There's something more behind Bast. Other than that, I don't have any other theories.
Well, I mean, he says to the chronicler, like, I need you to get this story out of him, right?
Yeah.
One more thing too that I wanted to bring up. The thing that I love about these books is it's especially evident in this first book, right? Even in the title, it's called The Name of the Wind, right?
Yeah.
And I love that in the way that he writes, the importance that he puts on names, right? And how that influences the magic, but how then it also like it influences like how you know and understand something, right? Like that. I remember when I read this, I was like, it's such an interesting idea to literally say, okay, once I know someone's true name, then I know that person, or like as intimate as I can, right? And I love that carries throughout the rest of the story, and especially with like Dana, right? Like every time she's back, she's like, oh, it's Dana, right?
Dana, Diane.
Diane, right?
Dina, Dana.
There's
like,
a lot of theories about that.
Yeah.
He doesn't know her
Nate
true
and I
name.
have talked about this in depth about what that means.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
I'm not sure if that's book 2 or not, so I don't
Yeah,
want to say.
that's more book 2. It's more book 2.
but as you are reading the first book, you can start to pick up, and that's why I think the second read is so good, is because you start to realize these name things, and you're like, oh wait, like what does this name mean? Oh, like what is this word that he used, and what does that mean? And like sympathy, like, oh, why is it called sympathy, right? Like there's so many things where I'm like, wow, I love how the name of something,
even just the things he names, like stanchion, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the Pike's place, the bar, stanchion is literally like one of those little bars with the rope, you know. And it's just he takes things from modern things too. It's crazy.
And Quoth is always giving people new names, right? Mm-hmm. And he's often like correct about like what they really are.
Which Illidan brings up.
Sisera.
Yeah. There's the sword. I think that's book 2.
That's book 2.
That is definitely book 2.
So I mean, it's great stuff. One more like general note is what this book handles really well is it gives you both a hard magic system and a soft magic system, which is great because it gives you that fix of learning how things work, but then you still get that wonder of, but naming though, you know, because you got sympathy and it's very science based. It's scientific. You know exactly how it works, and naming it's very similar in how they like interact with things, but how to get it to work is still that like magical boyish wonder, right?
Yeah, I think I counted once, and I think there are like 6 or 7 different magic systems in this.
Yeah, but the 2 main ones are sympathy and naming. Like I guess sigildry is technically different, but it's very much just sigildry, but written on things.
Sympathy, it's sympathy, but
it's just runes basically. But
what are the other ones?
like the alchemy one, right? Or
well, the ones we can talk about right now are. Specifically, he talks about in the first book how people have knacks, right? How someone in the troop has a knack for always rolling 3s or 1s.
Yeah.
Right, and that's a different magic system as well. Cause
it's like a gift or something.
Yeah.
The Chandrian obviously have some kind of magic.
There's
abilities.
Also
the Chandrian and what's their antithesis? The
Emir.
The Emir.
Well, and then there's
that story was really cool of their origin.
There was the ancient war between the namers and the shapers. So we know what naming is, but shaping was like creation itself almost.
Yeah.
So
interesting stuff. It's very cool. Also, I swear there was a part in this book where when he mentioned something about the wise man's fear. I don't remember who quoted it.
I
think it might have been Master Illidan or something said something about a wise man's fear knows something.
Illidan brings it up.
But anyways, just as you mentioned, Jared, that he mentioned something about doors of stone. So he likes to
I love the name of the second book. What's the focal? A wise man's
fear.
There are three things all wise men fear: the sea and storm, a night with no moon, and the anger of a gentle man. Like, ooh, it's good friggin' writing.
Good. It's literal poetry.
But what's so scary about it? What's so
it's like
scary
a proverb,
about
man.
What's so scary about it?
And that's how the entire book is written, and it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Alan, what was the one before that?
The sea in storm and a night with no moon, which there's been a lot of. There's a lot of stuff with the moon and the Fey world that's a little bit more in depth.
All second book, yeah.
There's hints to it in the first book. With the moon.
One of the other things I love that Elodin always does is he brings up what are the 7 words to make any woman fall in love with you?
Oh yeah.
Throughout the next 2 books, and
several times,
single time he says something to Denna, he's like, "Oh, that was 7 words." Or like he'll say something to a girl, he's like, "Oh, that was 7 words," and he counts them back. And starts.
We can't talk about it, but the last part of the second book has the 7 words, and it's like the most beautiful part.
It's so good.
It's so I get chills even thinking about it right now. It's so good.
That's how I think of the talents as well. Yes, the Nax,
yeah.
The talents from Wheel of Time, yeah. Similar thing.
Or if you've read Seventh Son by Orson Scott Card, it's kind of the same thing.
I haven't read that one yet. I need to. I need to read more Orson Scott Card. There's just so many of them. Yeah, David, do you have any other thoughts before we kick you out?
No, I think we've hit it to death.
All right. Well, you got to read book 2. Let's take a quick break and do some Screen Rants bad takes, and then we'll say goodbye to my brother David.
Nice.
And we'll get the party started. So here we go, everybody. Screen Rants bad takes. Here we go. Here's a good one. Kingpin is the perfect villain to fix Phase 4's crossover problem. Because Vincent D'Onofrio is returning to the MCU as the Kingpin, and you could use him to be like a really strong, powerful villain. Yeah, that would be the case if you didn't already ruin him in Hawkeye.
Yep.
So.
I hated that so much. Ugh.
He was the worst. I was like, they absolutely destroyed his character. So sorry, he's not going to be interesting in the MCU.
He should have
beaten up
on Kate Bishop, broken a few ribs, and the fight could have ended the same way. He got the
crap beaten out of him by a girl half of his size.
Yeah.
And this is the same Kingpin who smashed a guy's head in with a car door in season 1 of Daredevil.
Yeah.
Yep.
And why would you? Why
it's a different
would
one,
you make
though. It's
Hawkeye
multiverse.
show and not have Hawkeye and Kingpin fight?
That's season 2. Right there. You got to save something.
This one's worse, though. This one's worse. This one's way worse.
Oh no.
Inception 2 still needs to happen, but not with Christopher Nolan and Leonardo DiCaprio. Someone else should take up the mantle, take over Christopher Nolan's world, and write an uninspired sequel that can explore the world of dream sharing.
No.
If the first one was good, wouldn't you want to keep the writer? I mean, the person that did the first one.
Isn't this the worst thing you've ever read?
Exactly. First off, I don't think Inception 2 needs to happen because Inception was such a beautiful masterpiece.
Yeah.
But if it is going to happen, it absolutely has to have
the guy who made it.
It could be with different characters. It doesn't have to be Leonardo DiCaprio.
I agree. It doesn't have to
but
be.
But it has to be Nolan, 100%.
Or just recast it, and then it's in a multiverse.
But David,
everyone's doing multiverse.
Everybody's doing it.
David, don't you want someone else to take over the series and make an uninspired sequel that's just cashing out on the ideas and awesome things that Nolan established? Wouldn't that be great to you? Don't you want that?
Oh boy!
Oh no!
Screw you, David Conway. This is one of the most offensive Screen Rant articles I've seen on this. I think it comes right up second with that article, just bashing on
Stan Lee.
Stan
That
Lee.
one was so bad.
That by far takes the cake. That was the worst one. But this is a close second.
Yep.
Those are the only Screen Rant bad takes, but there were a couple other bad takes. But first, this is some interesting nerd news because you guys heard that Batgirl got canceled.
Mhm.
It's a completely
I did
finished.
hear that.
It's a completely finished movie, and they're not going to release it because it's so bad. But apparently, the Black Adam's test screenings were just as bad. I didn't know that. I didn't know they'd done test screenings for Black Adam and that they were as bad as a film that just got canned. Of course, I think they've done reshoots since then, but I thought that was just a really interesting thing that I hadn't heard about before.
Interesting.
Yeah. I like to use Screen Rant for news articles as well, so I don't appear like biased because everyone knows I hate them so much. So when I reference them for real news, I'm not making it up, right?
Wait, that movie was going to have Brendan Fraser in it? We need to make it happen. Even if it's bad, guys.
Yeah.
Which
That's
one,
the mixed bag. Yeah, Brendan Fraser played a part in Batgirl. So it's like I don't really want to see it, but it's Brendan Fraser.
I do want to see it.
But here's the thing. If it's bad enough, it's also fun to watch.
It's also good.
Right?
And
So-
means,
if
right?
everybody's bad, then we're all good.
I think they might just silently release it on HBO.
Yeah.
But it's
That's
never,
like
never,
the
it will never
direct
see
to
it.
VHS.
It will never see
from the
it.
90s, basically.
Yeah.
I think they'll say because they've already said they use the words irredeemable.
Oh,
They
no.
said this movie is irredeemable.
I mean, now I want to see it.
I know.
I do too. I wanna see how bad it is.
Even more.
Dude,
What's so bad about
this will be a Bad Movie Thursday movie.
Oh, yeah, ridiculous.
This is the
Movie
one
Thursday.
This is the one that also had Michael Keaton coming back as Batman, right?
No, that's in The Flash.
That's a
which,
different one.
Most
Okay.
people think is on the chopping block next because Ezra Miller is grooming children.
Yeah. and is
Apparently,
now MIA.
the last news we got is he's running the country with a bunch of guns because he thinks the KKK is chasing him.
What?
Okay, then.
You do enough coke, I guess. You just
Yeah, most people
Yeah.
think that the Flash the movie is next on the chopping block because they already canceled a bunch of CW DC TV shows and now Batgirl, and I assume the Flash is the problem is they already brought in Michael Keaton. I think they'll release it anyway, but just say maybe with a disclaimer saying sorry, we didn't know that he was so messed up.
Yikes.
It's not. I want to say Barry Keoghan, and I know that's wrong. He did. Barry Keoghan was the Joker or the Riddler. Ezra Miller was the Flash.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, but this is a real bad take. You ready for this one?
Oh no.
Obi-Wan season 2 needs to explore his sexuality.
Yeah, I saw that article too.
Who cares?
I
Oh,
care a little bit. I'm not gonna lie
Jedi
to
are celibate.
Oh,
Even if you explored his sexuality, he wouldn't be boning anyone.
you. That's the tragedy of it. Wow.
Can we
I
just
love how
talk
they
a
have-
little bit about
They have like
how
the
bad that
Pride
show
flag
was?
colors overlaying the background image. Why
I
is
don't
this
know if you've already
important?
talked about it, but how bad was that show? Can we
Oh,
just
Dude,
talk
yeah,
about
horrible.
it?
you should have
My-
come on
my
the show,
favorite-
Nathan. You should have.
My favorite part about the entire show was that nobody could finish the job on either side.
Yep.
Nobody.
Here's the
Yep.
thing. A lot of people on the show enjoyed Obi-Wan, and I needed more like-minded voices to back me up on how terrible it was.
No, I literally kept every episode. I'd be like, I hoped that would be better
Well, why didn't you come on the why didn't you come on the show, Nathan?
because you guys do it on Sundays, and Sundays
Yeah.
are my leave me the fuck alone days.
True, it's true.
You do not mess with me on Sundays. I'm like,
You don't mess with me until I've had my Sunday. Don't talk to me unless I've had my
don't talk to
coffee.
me. It's Sunday.
Is it? But how? Like who? First off, who cares?
Yeah.
Second off, like why would it be important? And he wouldn't be able to do anything with it. I guess the Jedi are gone, so maybe he goes off and has sex. But like, why would that be important to his character?
Yeah, I don't see that being important at all in any way, shape, or form.
And you do already have a really awesome backstory in the Clone Wars if you watch that animated series.
There was a hinted romance between him and that senator lady.
Yeah, Duchess Satine. He had a thing for Duchess Satine, and she didn't really reciprocate, and so he joined the Jedi Order. And there's a point in there that they meet back up, and he said, "I would have left the Jedi Order if you had said the word and run off with you." And anyway, so it's like a whole tragic thing, but like, why? It's not. Yeah, it doesn't need to focus on his sexuality. It needs to focus on good storytelling and not
also
shoehorned crap.
Also, we don't need a season 2 of Obi-Wan.
No, we don't. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We don't. What would that even be about? She gets kidnapped again?
It was because
yeah.
Oh man.
She was already kidnapped twice and doesn't remember it as an adult.
Yeah, like what?
But like, honestly, like after such a dumpster fire of a season 1, like this is the only thing I think you could do to make season 2 worse.
Oh boy! Oh my God!
All right, we got one more bad take. And David, you sent me this one, so I'm going to let you take over. This is from a new. The website's not new, but I've recently been seeing more and more of their articles. And I almost hate them as much as Screen Rant. It's a real big giant or incredibly big boy. What's it? Giant freaking robot.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings fans petition against Amazon show changing original trilogy. Now this is a real thing. There is.
Yeah. So
did they change the headline here?
No, they didn't. It's
okay.
A little bit misleading because it's not talking about changing original trilogy canon.
No, it's talking about the books.
Yeah. So what they're doing is they're re-releasing.
They're reskinning
the
Lord
books.
Of the Ring
trilogy with the new cover, which is something they do all the time when they come out with a new movie. Motion major picture, whatever.
The only exception here is that their show isn't about these books.
Exactly. And that's where the backlash is. They're reskinning these books with promotional images from the prequel show with a little stamp up at the top right saying Rings of Power. Watch it on Amazon. The new experience, the new legend rises or some crap like that.
So I agree. Like I've signed this petition, but there's two things wrong with what Amazon is doing, right? Their show isn't based on these books. It's a prequel. And so why would you put prequel images on the Lord of the Rings books? And the second problem is they're not even being faithful to the prequel. So why would you... I wouldn't want one of these books with their name on it, right? But what's so offensive about this article? Because I skimmed it and I didn't have time to read the whole thing.
So they're just reporting the news about the cover, and they actually have a link to that change.org article. So the article's not that bad. It's just talking about how some of the fans are rallying to try and get that changed. So the article isn't bad. It's just what they're doing. They're just trying to get free promotion.
The bad take is Amazon itself. Then
the bad take is Amazon itself trying to get some free promotion for their crap show by reskinning the books.
Wait, crap
let's
show?
Be honest,
it
will be crap show.
Oh yes,
really? I think it looks great so far.
Well, first of all, one of the things. My biggest pet peeves is that they have all these dwarven women, and not a single one of them has a beard.
And all of the elves have short hair too.
Yeah,
it's not. It does not. It looks like a good generic fantasy show. I'll give it that. It does not look like Lord of the Rings.
It's not.
Wait, what are you talking about with the short hair? I saw one with short hair, which I'm pretty sure is Sauron.
No, the one with the shaved head, they want you to think is Sauron. I don't know if it's Sauron or not.
No, we already know that's not Sauron. Sauron is Sauron.
They're doing a bait and switch, trying to make you think that that's Sauron.
Rude.
I can tell you exactly who Sauron is, unless you don't want spoilers.
No, don't tell me.
No spoilers.
I know
here's
the
thing.
story.
I
I don't
don't think
want
I've followed
spoilers.
everything that you guys have followed, because so far all I've seen are the Amazon trailers, and it looks really good.
Right.
to
Yeah,
me.
the trailers don't look that bad, but if you followed like the publicity, the
marketing,
things that the showrunners have said, you need to start watching my channel, Nathan.
Like I said, the
Wow,
trailers
what a spoiler.
themselves, they look like good generic fantasy, but the elves and the dwarves do not look like Lord of the Rings. Nathan, get back here.
Sorry, I was focused on the bad takes, but look at the 7 words. I'm a billionaire. How are you?
7 words to make any woman love you.
I'm sorry, I missed all these comments because I was focused
that
on
was
this
good.
section.
That was good. But no, it's the promotional stuff that they've been doing behind the scenes, the interviews, the statements that they've come out with on Twitter, saying that this is not Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. They've come out and said that Tolkien was problematic, and they need to update his world to be more reflective of our world.
Yeah, the showrunners explicitly
Which
said
doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
They hired people of color on purpose because they didn't want they wanted the show to reflect our current day politics and our current day demographics instead of the world of Tolkien. What's interesting about that is Tolkien wrote the Lord of the Rings to replace English mythology.
Folklore, yeah.
That was like it takes place in England, but that's why there weren't very many people of color in it. Now he did include a lot of people of color that came from outside of Middle Earth, but people say, "Oh, it's racist to only have white people in the books," but it's not. It's just because it takes place in Europe, right?
Which actually makes it more racist because the Lord of the Rings happens afterwards, and was there some like genocide on all of the biracial elves or something?
I mean,
they don't exist.
So what are we not happy about? Is that the main thing then? Is like
there's lots of other things that they've been lying about the show essentially.
Yeah, they've been straight up lying. They're said specifically about the dwarves, the dwarven women. They said, "Oh yeah, they have facial hair. We put the facial hair."
It's CGI.
They said we did the facial hair practically. We put the hairs on individually. During the same Comic-Con panel where they released the trailer that shows that the women don't have beards.
What?
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest here. After the Wheel of Times fiasco, Amazon is not going to do good with Lord of the Rings.
I have high hopes because the trailers
I have
look
no
really
faith.
good. So that makes me very upset.
Also, they had a lore expert that was very
Tom Shippey. They fired him for telling them to stop making changes.
Exactly. He was their lore expert.
And during the same Comic-Con panel, they name dropped him. But someone said, "Hey, a lot of people take this as sacred. So what does it feel like to have this much pressure on?" They're like, "Oh, well, we've had the privilege of dealing with experts like Tom Shippey who've helped us." And this was like a week after they'd fired him. They were name dropping him for cred.
Yeah. And he specifically told them that they were changing too much, and it was not reflective of Tolkien's world.
That does worry me.
There are a bunch of worry signs. I'll share some videos that I've made.
I'm still going to watch it. I'm not going to.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it. I will. If I hate it, I hate it. I don't really care about the colorblind casting. Like to me, I'm like, it's a fantasy world.
Right.
I don't.
I get that.
Choose the best actor. Choose the best actor. It doesn't matter.
I agree with that.
The problem was they put those calls out specifically for people of color.
Yeah.
They said we will not hire white people for these roles, and that's like what?
Yeah,
it wasn't. That's the thing. It wasn't colorblind casting. They went into it wanting to race swap these people, and they admitted it.
Well, yeah, send me the rest of that stuff because I actually don't, because that's just gonna. After we watch it and we hate it, then I want to know why it was so bad. How about that?
Also, another thing, Nathan, that you can get directly from the trailer is I don't like the way that they're portraying. I'm blanking on her name. I had it.
Galadriel.
Yeah,
they're making her a warrior,
this awesome, magical, elvish princess. And she's very powerful with magic, but they're making her just, a badass knight with a sword and armor. That does not look like Galadriel to me.
Also,
mean,
Nathan,
can I ask a question though? How much do you know about the actual mythology and lore, like the Silmarillion and these really in-depth?
I have the Silmarillion. I haven't read it, but I know the synopsis of everything that happens in the Silmarillion.
I'm not an expert, but I've been reading up a lot on it.
Well, because I haven't read the Silmarillion either, but I did go on a crazy deep dive in.
Yeah, same here.
Where I understood all the mythology and all this stuff. So I don't maybe understand if that's a correct way to represent a character like Galadriel, but I also don't know if they really represent them that carefully within the Silmarillion books, right? So to me, as someone who loves the series and who knows quite a bit about the lore and knows about the characters, to me, I'm interested in this characterization depending on how they do it, right? Because I do know a lot about their history and the lore, and that doesn't bother me because I don't know that it's actually fleshed out that specifically in the books. Because he is very broad in the way he writes. He wrote so much, but again, until we see this, I don't know if I can.
Here's one more example, Nathan, before we move on. Yeah. So Tolkien was specifically in person asked while he was still alive about hobbits before the story of the Fellowship of the Ring. He said, did hobbits ever do anything interesting in the Second Age? And he said, no, hobbits didn't exist in the Second Age. They and they didn't do anything remarkable in the Second Age. So in the first chapter of the Fellowship of the Ring, it talks about how hobbits were created. There were 3 ancestors, and one of them were the Harfoots that they came together to ultimately become the hobbits. And someone asked them in this panel, so how come there's a hobbit story in the Second Age? And they said, well, technically it's not a hobbit story. It's a Harfoot story. And Tolkien didn't say that the Harfoots didn't do anything remarkable in the Second Age. He said that the hobbits didn't do anything remarkable in the Second Age. And so we felt like we had license to do what we wanted there. And that's not a good attitude.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. There's a lot of retconning here, right? But it's an interesting
the Harfoot stores and the Fallowhides.
Yeah, it's an interesting point they're saying in the chat, right? This isn't the Silmarillion. And I always knew that. How are you going to make a prequel that isn't the Silmarillion? There's not really, to my knowledge, a real follow-through story.
They don't even own the rights.
Yeah, they don't own the rights, but
they don't own the rights to the Silmarillion. They own the rights to the appendices to the Return of the King, which references
the only thing they can adapt. The only thing they can adapt
even
is
in
the
those
Second
books,
Age.
from what I understand, they're not full stories. They're literally written like history.
It's a history book. Yeah, the Silmarillion is a history book.
I always, thinking about this book, this series, it wasn't going to be an accurate representation about that. It was going to use that lore to make new stories. Right. So that's again where I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be good. It could be awful, but I'm still interested.
I think it will be. I think it will be if you just completely erase everything you know about Tolkien. I think it will be a fine fantasy show.
It's not going to be,
but it's not going to be a Tolkien show.
Yeah.
So and that's why people are upset. So why would you put it on Tolkien's books?
Right.
It does kind of seem again like a money grab.
Yeah. You don't say. You don't say.
Interesting.
Okay, but I always try and, after bad takes, which puts me in a bad mood, I always try and lighten it up with a couple jokes. And I thought this was a particularly funny tweet, clowning on the Wheel of Time. Really excited. This is by Christine Love. Really excited for the Lord of the Rings prequels series to finally answer all my big backstory questions, like, why was meat originally taken off the menu?
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
I just like how I saw a meme once where that implies that there are restaurants in Middle Earth.
I never realized that. That's good.
Yeah, that is not my content. I read that somewhere, but I always laugh when I think about it.
I would like a menu, please.
Yeah.
No meat.
Yeah. What I would like to know is the origins of Second Breakfast. If they could clarify that in the show,
Breakfast.
The rest is.
We also got another little satire article from the Babylon Bee. Oops. So the Batgirl movie was canceled after 70 million in Batmobiles destroyed backing out of the Batgirl. That's everyone was wondering why the budget was so high. It's because
there's a joke in there about like female drivers that I'm not going to take. I'm not going to make that joke.
That is the joke, Nathan.
Oh no.
That's so good.
All right.
That's funny.
Now that I'm done being sad, we can talk about something that we love, and that means getting rid of someone I hate.
That was so cold-hearted.
I brought you back. You want to say goodbye?
Bye.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
Oh man!
Before we move on, I want to address SG's comment about Galadriel, because first of all, like, that's impressive knowledge. I don't have that knowledge. I have pretty in-depth knowledge of a person who researched things on the internet but hasn't read things. Yeah, which isn't always great. But this was 2005, so maybe it was better then. Yeah, who knows?
They're putting Galadriel in a lot of places where she never went.
Yeah, and even watching the trailer, I thought that probably wasn't real, but I'm still interested in seeing how they adapt the creation of the rings, that comet coming down, which they're kind of alluding to Sauron, but it's probably
a different Maiar.
Gandalf, right? It's probably one of the 5
that
wizards.
It's going to be Gandalf.
So I don't know all of that, and if I did, I'd probably be a lot more angry. But at this point, I just want to see if it's any good, and when it is not.
So during this second age, Sauron was he's a shapeshifter. He was pretending to be a different person, and he presented himself to the elves and basically taught them how to make rings of power. So everyone started making their rings of power, and then he secretly made the One Ring.
Yeah, it does
starts
show like
the magic, and everyone's like, "Oh no, we've been tricked."
That's part of it, because he's a werewolf at one point, and they talk about that, and they show werewolves in the trailer.
Yeah.
So this is why in my head I was like, well, it could maybe be more accurate, because I don't know. But again, I digress.
If you know a lot about the lore, it's pretty obvious who they've shown Sauron in the trailers, but as his elf form.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to spoil it for you if you don't want to be spoiled, but I can tell you if you want to know who it is.
No.
I would have to watch the trailers again, but no, don't. Because again, I know most of that. I know all of that. I just don't know the specific, like, who came from Valinor, who came over the tundra, which is very impressive.
Yeah, I don't think she ever did that. But there's a lot of things. Did you see the Sauron meme, though? We shared it already on this stream. It's so funny. I can't find it. All right, let's talk about Kingkiller. Book 2, baby. All spoilers, full steam ahead, full spoiler ahead.
So if you haven't read the book and you don't want spoilers,
please stay, because we really enjoy you in our chat, and also we need the subscribers.
But you're just gonna have to endure the spoilers.
Yeah.
So can we talk about the fact that David literally called the ending of the second book?
He was.
Yeah.
I was like, and he said that, and I was like, wait, didn't it say that was the case in the prologue? I was like, wait, no, that's the next one. I'm like, did you not read the last chapter of the book, you dummy?
Oh man.
Yeah,
that was just ironic. I love that. Very good guess.
I have to say, I am excited to figure out what happens, like what's Bast's intentions, because there's so much. Let's talk about Bast.
Yeah, talk about Bast.
Do you guys think Bast is Quoth's son with Florian, or what?
I do.
Actually. I think there's a lot of evidence that's
one of the most common
theories. One of the things that I was actually reading on the other day was basically an article that talked about how Bast was sent to Coat by Florian to remind him of his promise, and to remind him that he is supposed to come back to her after he's done his adventure.
We do know that he does go back to the Fae, though, in book 3. Mm-hmm. We know he goes back. We don't know that he goes back to see Florian, but he does visit the Fae.
Well, I just think Doors of Stone that really.
I mean, it has to be
Death, but realms and the Greystones. Mm. Like, there's so much tied in there. It has to be part of it.
No, he said that he has gone back. in book 2. He mentioned
Also, because the Fae has different time, which he also alluded to, David, which again, so insightful. He always surprises me, actually.
Yeah, me too.
Would explain why, with not much time,
I know he looks so dumb, but sometimes he has bright ideas.
No.
It's very surprising.
But you were saying that it's probably not as much time as we think it's been, and that's one of the arguments that it could be hard for him to have it like Bast, who's But with time in the Fae,
we know
it makes sense that.
It also makes sense why he's so attached to him. Like it doesn't feel like a friendship relationship. It feels familiar, like maybe you're his grandson.
One theory I wanted to hit by you guys was that we kind of touched on when he loses he learns how to play music right at the beginning off of he doesn't have
his daddy's lute.
Yeah, but it also talks about how he kind of sits there. He's there for a while, right? And he learns how to play.
Once he plays all the songs that he knew, and then he started making up songs based on what was around him, which is partly why he is so good at naming.
Yeah,
he started listening to things and understanding.
And when he goes into that area of like Spinning Leaf, which is funny. Is that what it is? Spinning Leaf? Sometimes they get mixed up with.
Spinning Leaf, I think, is what he called it.
Yeah. Sometimes I get mixed up with Wheel of Time.
With the Wheel of Time, with the flame and the
because I legit
the void. It's the void in the Wheel of Time.
Yeah, Spinning Leaf.
In this, it's Spinning Leaf.
What's the other one?
There's two in this.
Heart of
Stone and Spinning Leaf. So the Heart of Stone is what he learns first. And then Spinning Leaf is what he learns from the
when he goes to the
not the Shido, Temi.
No, not the Emir.
The Temi is the guy that takes him there, but it's the
I know.
They're the mercenaries.
I know
they wear the red. The Idem? No, Adem.
Adem. Yeah.
Adem.
The Dimaru?
No.
No.
Yeah.
That scene with the Adem, I mean, where he goes in and he.
Which scene with the Adem?
You mean half the book?
I know, right? The part where he finally does his test and he literally just calls the wind and stops the tree. For the first
and then he does it, and then he comes out with nothing. Right? What does he bring from the tree? Himself and silence. And I'm like, it's so good. It's so poetic.
I just love how he explains that like this tree has never stopped moving once, and he just calls the name of the wind and just peacefulness. And like, I just love to think about like what the Adem are thinking like in that moment. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, how is he this like powerful? Like, what just happened? Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Diane being like the moon who's lost her name. That's a pretty big.
Because Diana.
Yeah, and Diana. I mean, that's a very literal reference too.
But there is a point. Goddesses. There is a point where he speaks her true name. Florian mentions it right when she's in Ventus in the bar. She shows up and she can't breathe. He speaks her true name and saves her life. And then Florian says, "You didn't use it. Wasn't just naming.
You mean Elodin?" I was like, "What are you talking about?"
No, Florian. Florian is the one that tells him what happened. No, you're right.
No, because that's the last scene in the book. He calls the wind from her lungs, is what he does.
Yeah, that's what he does. But the part you're referring to is he thinks he calls the name of the wind and overpowers Florian.
But
and when he talks to Elodin, he's like, no, the wind isn't powerful enough to do that. The name you called was Florian.
He calls Florian's name, but he also calls Denna's real name when he saves her, isn't it?
No, he calls the wind and uses it to do the lungs.
Okay, right. Okay, I was getting those two mixed up. He calls Florian's name, and he
he says the 7 words, which are "I need you to breathe for me." I think.
Yeah,
that's 7, right?
It's so good. I need to go back and read them now.
Can we talk about Sim? He's so good. And Sim and Fella,
they're so cute.
Yeah. And that was the moment where she fell in love with him. I was like, heck yeah, I would too. And I'm straight.
Sim is a great character. Yeah,
he is really good. I just love all of his friends. I think they're all brilliant. And especially if you, like,
I still think my
listening to
7.
it on
Sorry,
audiobook.
SD says he still thinks his 7 words are better than I'm a
I mean, his were
millionaire.
pretty
I'm a
good.
millionaire. Sup or whatever, right?
Those were pretty good ones.
One thing I think is interesting that they do in the book is they keep retelling the same story from different perspectives. So we really don't which is another like example of an unreliable narrator, right?
Yeah.
That we were talked about earlier. We don't know how much of this story is accurate or how much of it is maybe just his perspective of the situation, right? Where they talk about the siege of the city, Minas Mir Terrenial. Right? And then it's totally different. But then even then you later hear about the religion where the religion has even talked about it in a different way, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like all these different cultures and perspectives talking about the same thing, and we don't really know what is real. Which side were the Chandrian on? What are the Chandrian?
You get Declan's romanticized version of it, and he gets pissed off at her because he killed my daddy.
Yeah, right.
Well, because he's trying to tell her that she's got it wrong, and that's the one scene that
really,
I hated.
Do we know that it's wrong at this point?
We don't, but that's
we
the
don't
one
even
thing
know.
that, like, I hated about that part is that, like, he loses his mind on her.
He gets pissed
just because like his opinion or what he's learned about this song is like what he thinks is incorrect, and he like loses it on her.
Okay, here's the question.
And pushes her away. It drives me nuts.
Here's the question: did the Chandrian kill his family?
Yes, I believe yes. And it's because
it's blue fire, doesn't it?
Hear me out.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I want to hear.
We know the Chandrian were there. We never saw them do any killing. Kvothe wakes up and he sees them talking around the fire.
But I think he says something about finishing him off, doesn't he? Or like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Heliax says to Cinder about finishing someone off, but there's also some hints when he's in Terrabian. The two, when he's beaten up by the guards for begging on the wrong side of town, the two people come to save him, and they say, "Oh, we got to leave him here because if someone shows up, they'll assume that we did it." Which is a pretty clear parallel to what happened. It's a lot of people think that that we have the Chandrian and the Amir all wrong,
right?
And the Chandrian are actually good, but cursed by the
and he alludes that too, right? Like he like the song that his dad's writing completely tells the story of Halifax or
Heliax.
Oh
Heliax?
No, it's someone else.
Yeah, but it's one of those guys.
It's before he turned into Heliax.
Yeah, but it completely
Lion and his King Lion and his wife or whatever, and it's like that story. I can't remember what their names are.
So yeah, like I think that would definitely be an interesting.
Lanray and his wife.
Lanray, yeah.
Lanray.
But it doesn't actually do the song though, right? It does a little part of the song.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right, and that's all. We don't know what the perspective of it was, what they were saying, and then later we hear that story at the inn with Scarpy. So we assume that that's the story.
Yeah.
So here's the reason I think that they did kill him.
Right.
Is because throughout the entire book,
Cinder is very like vile. He's an unhinged person, and he's one of the Chandrian. So he's a mean person, but it doesn't mean he is the evil. But
except for, I mean, he's literally the person that he finds in the bandit camp that's been looting and robbing all these people.
Yes.
I mean, so did.
Here's the thing, though. The Amir, at first, when he's reading the history books about the Amir, at first they started off good, and then the latter end of the history talks about all the horrors
for the greater good, right?
For the greater good.
Right, like the horrors and atrocities that
so I think he's being very tricky about good and evil and our all the things that we. I mean, because he's been so tricky before, right? Patrick Rothfuss is very. Here's the thing. There are so many layers. There's so many possibilities. I literally have no idea how the third book's going to end because there's so many freaking possibilities, right? It could be that we're right all wrong and the Chandrian are bad, or it could be that Chandrian are actually good, or it could be that they're just neutral, you know, and they're cursed by the like. here's the thing: they haven't really done anything since. Since they disappeared.
I mean, they burned.
What have they been doing? What have the Chandrian been doing? They've been destroying all records of their names.
The wedding down though.
It kind of sounds like they're hiding from
pottery, though. Yeah.
Yeah, because remember the Ciridae, right? In that beginning, he's like, they're going to do something, but the Ciridae are coming, which is the Emir, and they
Which
leave
is the Emir
because of that.
Yes.
So
it
why
kind
would
of sounds like it kind of sounds like they're in hiding and scared of the
why
Emir.
would the Emir come and kill people and then leave, and then the other people come and then they come back?
I don't know.
Also, the entire book they're referencing that you can't say their name without them knowing and them hearing. Yeah. And they even reference it at the very beginning. They're about to kill Koth. They're about to murder him when Heliax.
He says, "Have you forgotten our goal? What we're after?" So
but he also stops and he listens, and then he's like, "They're coming.
They're on their way." Yeah.
And so it's stuff like that. So. Yeah. Not only that, though, but what I think he's doing is he's listening to people say his name or people say it because, I mean, that's what they've literally moved to this entire book is that if you say their name more than once, then they'll come to you. Even when he's with the Adem, he gets the story from the elder, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to tell you this once,
and you're not allowed to say it for another 100
days. You're not allowed to say it for so long. You can't, So
I love that.
That was great. Yeah, that's one of my favorite moments.
Triangulation of.
Yeah, so you have to be a certain distance away from here. You can't say within a certain amount of time. So it's to me, everything points. Even if there was a conspiracy that the Emir are currently the ones actually doing bad, it still points to me that they're the ones showing up to the people saying their name and killing them.
I believe that the Chandrian killed his family, but I think there's going to be some kind of twist where it's not good and evil. They're both morally gray, and they've both done good and bad things.
Agreed.
And they're just two warring factions. Because
the Namers and the Sheepers, even maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
What do you think?
Well, I'm just thinking because there's so much that we don't know about these guys, right?
What is their goal? What are they trying to achieve, the Chandrian?
Yeah, we know the history, the story that people are telling, right? But there's two different sides of the story, and so it's so hard.
Always two different sides.
But I agree.
Patrick Rothfuss is a rat bastard.
But this is why I think
you can never just tell us what's up.
Yeah, but there's so much that you can read into, and you look at names and stuff, and you're like, ooh, this could be a plausible explanation, and I think that it could be.
Look how much good it's done for him, though. Here we are 10 years later after the damn book, and we're still talking about it on his conspiracy theories and what the heck it could possibly mean. So clearly he did a good job.
Yeah.
I mean,
doesn't make what I said untrue.
No, not at all.
He did a good job. It doesn't mean that he's not a bastard.
Well, okay. So here's another thing, though.
A very rich bastard.
So I think the interesting thing too is not only just their motives, but also their connection to people, right? Denna seems to have, potentially could have a connection to them as well, right? Because there's some theories that
her patron
that could be the mentor, right, or
her
one of the
patron,
yeah. So it's got to. Her patron is
what is it, Master Oak or something like that?
It's Master Ash.
Ash, thank you.
Which is the name?
Master Oak. What is this? Pokemon?
Master Ash is the name that Quoth gives to him because she won't say anything about him.
And he's good at.
I'm just going to call him Master Ash, which is
like Ember,
Cinder.
Cinder, yeah.
So, but
holy shit. That just blew my mind. I had never even thought of that.
Her patron
I thought they were the same person, but that was wow.
Her patron is either Cinder
or the Emir.
Or even one of the Emir, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be something like that.
This is something I've thought, though, and because there's that moment with the Cathay, right? Where he's like...
Oh, the freaking Cathay.
Yeah, where he talks about how he beats her, right?
Yes.
He beats Denna.
He doesn't say he's beating her up.
Yeah, right.
He could be playing a
training
game,
her or training her.
Because that what the Cathay does is he'll tell you the truth, but not the whole truth, and nothing but the whole truth to trick you into thinking something.
only thing that like makes me not think that though is that
the Cathay?
she does say, he beats her, and the last thing she thinks about before she passes out is you, or before she blacks out is you. So
it doesn't say blackout, but it could be when she goes to sleep at night, she thinks of you. Like there's so much that's not said.
Yeah.
It's true, but the way that she words it makes it sound like she's
because it's the Cathay wording it to sound like that's what's happening.
Like that. Where it
but
could be trained
does.
He goes back and he talks to Felorian, and she specifically says, no, she doesn't lie. She doesn't need to. She can see the future from what she's going to tell you. Right. So to me, it sounds like she's telling 100% of the truth with not a manipulation, knowing exactly what reaction it'll get out of him and what it'll provoke.
Wait, so you think that he is actually just beating her?
I do, yes.
You
really?
think someone would do that?
Those words.
You think the Cathay would do that? Just go on the internet and not lie?
Felorian specifically says that she does not lie.
I know, but that's the thing. It's not a lie for him to say that he's beating her.
It's the I should I double speak.
Yeah, it's literally that, Tim. It's literally he's saying exactly the truth. You're just gonna read something from it.
I just don't. The thing is, I don't see a purpose of why, like, what it would affect her. Why train her to fight? Like, what end does this meet?
This leads to another theory. The pottery in book 1 that had depictions of the Chandrian.
The wedding.
There are 8, not 7.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the 8th?
So what if Denna is the 8th Chandrian?
A lot of people think it's Denna. Some people think it could be even Fella.
Because she talks about why she's like running.
Because Fell is the 8th week.
Oh, interesting.
Or the 8th day of the week, and Fella. That's a theory I've heard. I don't like that one as much.
Think about the fact that we don't actually know Denna's name, right? So you wouldn't give people your real name though if if saying it like the Chandrian is
saying it would ring a bells in your head.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. I think there are only 7 Chandrian, and I think that they might always work with some kind of like sycophant, like Renfield to Dracula, some kind of like sheet or person that they use as a buffer for the real world. So Denna could be their servant.
What if she's not their servant? What if it's more of they're just hunting Denna? Maybe that's why she always disappears.
Could be.
That's why she can't stay in the same spot for too long.
Well, and Denna was at the wedding before they showed up, right?
Yep.
So,
so what if they weren't coming for the pottery, but for her?
She's definitely involved with something that we don't know about. That's for sure.
For the 8th Chandrian, though, I wonder. My personal theory was that because they talk about how there was like the devil, basically, right? Like the demon, who in the religious thing is like the most demon of demons, which sounds so stupid to say. But they haven't alluded to another figure like that at all.
Is this the guy that was like burned at the wheel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What was his name? Yeah, they bury him and burn him. Telu burns him.
So that could be Haliax, but it could also be the 8th Chandrian, who's basically just like the pinnacle, the highest, the leader, the highest of high.
Yeah.
What was the name of that guy who was
Telu
born?
It
was an immaculate conception thing too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Antichrist or something like that.
Pretty much, yeah. Which I think they have it backwards. I think Telu is not the good guy. I think they worship the wrong guy, and I think they allude to that, and they kind of try to show you that in the first book when he's like down on his knees and he's like literally freezing to death in his back alley, and they're having the 1 week of the demon running through the city,
and the demon helps him,
and then
not
the demon comes
Telu.
and helps him up. Not Telu, exactly. So I think they're alluding to the fact that their religion is wrong. That Telu is the one that has just made them idolize him, even though he's wrong.
Yes,
it's Telu and Incanus.
And you know what? Incanus is like Latin base for like light, right? Which is like light bringer, which is like Lucifer, son of the morning. So he's doing that again with this like.
I think we should just all start worshiping the devil.
No, but I think it's like that perspective thing, right? Like all devils were angels at one point.
We all become Satanists because we read a book.
Was that about living long enough to become the enemy? Or what is that quote?
Oh gosh, dang it! It's from Batman.
Live long
yeah,
enough.
I think so.
Gosh, dang it!
You either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain.
Yep, exactly.
Yep, that's what it is.
And it's Two-Face that says it, right, or something like that, or
it's
I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's he says it when he's running for senator or whatever, but
But Tim, that's a really good point.
So I think he's alluding to the fact that their religion is flipped and they've gotten it wrong. Which, if it is the case, it is very possible that you were saying earlier,
Chandrian
with
not the bad
Chandrian being the good people and the Emir being the bad. It is also very possible that the Chandrian have just been on the run and trying to hide themselves for so long.
Because because
they're covering up their track.
They act scared, right?
Yeah,
so
they do.
It is possible that the reason they go to everybody that says their name is because they kill them before the Emir can get there and find them.
Yeah, and find the information, maybe something.
Exactly. So because, like, for instance,
another theory,
all the other people have like said his name and they've never showed up, but his dad had more information during his song. He said he was studying something. He had information from somewhere. So it's possible that his information was actually correct. His information had leads that could have led the Emir to them. And that's why they had been killed.
What was your theory, Alan?
Well, it's not my theory. It's a theory I've heard, is that the Chandrian kind of work like Greek gods, in that the more people believe in you, the stronger the god is. And if they stop believing in you, you fade into existence. And so the Chandrian, their powers is more of a curse than it is a power, and their goal is to finally die. So they're going around erasing all mentions of their name so that they can finally pass through the doors of stone.
An interesting one.
The doors of stone. Well, in that story with Lanre,
it's not my favorite theory, but it
doesn't he try to die? Like, he wants to die, and he
does, and then she calls him back with her power.
Yeah.
There's so many I don't know.
Well, let's talk about some really easy theories then. For instance, like him being clearly...
It's a common trope with gods.
Or American Gods, too, by Neil Gaiman, which is amazing if you haven't read that. But very clearly, his mother was the Lackless heir who ran away. It's so obvious. It's so stupid.
So obvious.
No. It's only obvious upon a reread. Like you're like you kind of get hints. And you're like, wait, that sounds similar, and then you reread it, and you're like, there is literally no other explanation. His mom is the lost Lackless girl.
But I remember talking to you about this, Jared. Maybe about there's a theory where his dad is one of the Chandrian or an Emir.
Who stole his mom away? Looking for the Lackless key.
And also like because he knows so much about the Greystones, right, and all that stuff. Like he knows. I'll have to look up this theory because it was a good.
But then why would? Oh, and so he just pretended to die.
Yes,
and he just caught up with his friends.
Well, and I'm trying to remember. I feel like it doesn't actually talk about how he.
You'd have to be really two-faced though, because his dad is awesome.
No.
I don't think it actually shows him that his father's body. Like I think
he does. He finds his mother and father both in they're both hugging each other in death.
It does show their bodies. It shows both of them.
There was some sort of theory. I need to look it up then.
That's an interesting one.
Or that he was Fae. That maybe that was it. That he was a Fae.
A Fae.
That would be an interesting one.
Oh yeah.
The theory I have is
I'm gonna look it up.
The university, the guy that runs the university, the guy that runs the books, the library,
is an
I think he is one of the Emir.
Oh yeah, that's
because of Puppet is the only one allowed in the library with candles, and he's watching those candles to see if they ever turn blue.
Ooh, that's a really good. I never even thought about that. Damn.
Shoot.
Because if the Chandrian show up, at the university, they're not going to walk in the front door. They're going to go in through the library.
That's a really good theory. I've never thought of that in my life.
That's because you're stupid.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh.
But maybe there's a double reason for why no candles, no open flame in the library though. Too, because maybe you get close to that 4-plate door.
No, because he comes to that 4-plate door.
The 4-plate door, it's obviously a prison, right? It's a prison.
I feel like, yeah.
What if the 4-plate door is holding the 8th Chandrian?
Could be.
But that wouldn't make sense because they know what's behind it. They've all been behind it.
So the lackless box, obviously, it's the lackless box holds one of the, because there's 4 locks on the door. Lackless box holds one of the keys, and the 4 keys were spread across the 4 nations. One of them was given to so Lanfear already has one. Not Lanfear. Lanray had one of the keys, and he's turned into Heliax. And his lover, Lanray and Lyria, she had another one of the keys.
Yeah, I feel like it's Lyria.
One of them ended up being a ancestor to the Lackless, probably, and we don't. And one of the other ones was killed. So they probably have the 3 of the keys, and the Lackless box holds the 4th key.
So here's my question with that, though, is that Illodan talks about when he was raised to the Chancellor, he's been behind that door.
Does he say he's seen what's behind it?
Yeah, he said, when I was a kid, I used to wonder what was behind that door until I was raised to Chancellor, and now I'm like, he talks about like, oh, well, you know, I was curious too until I got to Chancellor, now that I've been behind it or something like that.
I think he knows what's behind it. I don't think he's been.
The other theory is that's the only place they can talk about the Chandrian without them showing up. Like they go in, like similar to how the Adem don't talk about the Chandrian. Like they go into that room to say it, and then, or maybe that's where they keep all the books on the Chandrian so that no one reads their names out loud.
I think that's where they keep all the books on the Emir, because every library has been scoured of the Emir's content.
Also,
and I think
the Chandrian
library, which would be also
honest.
Yeah.
Man, so many good theories. Here's another theory: is Kvothe a Chandrian?
No.
Present day Kvothe, because the Skin Dancer. What does he say to Kvothe? He's fighting and he turns, looks at Kvothe, and he says, "Te Athean the Sethanalari," and he says,
"Nailed it."
Te Rinte, which Rinte is almost identical to the word that the Adem use for Chandrian. It could very well be he's asking, "Are you Chandrian?" The other thing that supports this theory, all of the Chandrian have a tell, right? They have a curse that shows up everywhere they go. And what is constantly surrounding Coat? A silence that belongs to him. The third silence is his Chandrian curse. It could be that he ends up killing one, and like if you kill them, then you take up the mantle or something like that. But like the curse is like something that would specifically curse you, and with music like that would be a curse tailored for Kvothe.
Interesting. I can see a possibility of, in his current state, him being one of the Chandrian. It would also make sense why that would make it so that he can't access his things.
It would also explain why he's mad at Denna. If Denna is involved with the Chandrian and she betrays him, and she's the reason he becomes a Chandrian and it can no longer music.
Interesting. That one's a really interesting theory.
I've never heard that before. That is very interesting.
I haven't either. Huh. Boy. Little did we know that Patrick Rothfuss is just taking notes in our chat right now. He's just like,
That's how I should Tomorrow he announces a publication date for book Doors of Sound. Completely coincidental.
Oh my gosh.
No, that's not my theory though. I believe it was captured in words. If you guys should watch his YouTube channel. He does a lot of Kingkiller theories and stuff. Yeah, there are other theories though. Rinte might not translate to Chandrian because it's a different language. It could mean what's the other one that people are saying? This is a different thread.
I mean, Te Rinte could also be
Chandrian. Rinte, it could also translate to shapes and a shaper or something like that. And so that someone also guesses that when the Skinwalker is asking, you changed your true name, which is the other theory. That's got to be what's in his box, right?
It's his name, yeah.
It's his own name, and because especially with the horror, is it Florian when he says, what if I change my name?
It's Elodin, I think.
Elodin?
He's talking to Elodin because he's talking to her about Denna.
Why the heck would you do that?
Yeah.
Which the text
I think that one has
the book supports that because
he changed his name
right after the fight, right? So during the fight at the end, he's kicking ass for like a good 30 seconds before he starts getting, they start whooping on him.
Oh, and current present day, right?
Yeah, the present day, yes. And then at the very end of the book, Bass is talking to him, and he's like, "I almost forgot who I was." Mm-hmm. He's like, "I almost forgot who I was," and I think it's because he started coming back to the old Koth. He started coming back, and then realized, "Hey, I can't go back to this. I'm not ready for this." Or these guys would know who I am.
Yeah, or he can't because he doesn't have
his name's also in the book. Yeah, so it's very possible that all of that is basically trying to tell us that he has changed his name. Now, the only thing that I find that contradicts this is that he has the Adem sword skill, whether he has his name or not.
Right.
So two people shouldn't have been able to conquer him like that. That's the only thing where I'm like,
Well, that's the thing. Like, what happens when you change your true name? Like, you literally will become a different person with different.
Yeah.
With you won't have the same skills.
Yeah.
It's possible. The way I look into it or read into it is that he just realized that if he did this, they would realize that he's in hiding and not dead, or they would be suspicious enough to blow his cover, and he doesn't want that.
So
I think it's probably a little bold, right?
Yeah, probably.
So why is Coat hiding? Why is
that was
the inn? Is the inn a trap that he has built, or is he truly in hiding? Because here's the thing:
who's the king that he's killing in the Kingkiller Chronicles?
That's got to be. He's got
Ambrose.
He doesn't.
I don't think it's Ambrose.
He does not kill Ambrose.
No. Do you think it's
Ambrose? Is like third in the line.
I think he kills the king and
accidentally put Ambrose in power.
And then I think Ambrose steals Denna, or Denna betrays Kvothe for his own good and goes to Ambrose in power.
I'm more along the thinking of two things. I think they do mention several times how close Ambrose is to the line. Yeah. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that that he has this animosity towards him. They have this huge buildup of contempt, and like he's a major part of the story. For him it would be so easy for him to suddenly be, you lose two more heirs and he's the king, right? And then he kills him for some reason.
I think it would be too easy for him to kill Ambrose. Right. I think it would be more poetic if he's the one responsible for putting Ambrose in power by killing his dad.
But
or something.
There's also a theory because they mentioned that Sim is nobility, and he's also in line to the throne.
I would hate that.
Right? It would suck, but
that would
you know what? He does
suck
that.
so bad.
I almost said Patrick Rothfuck just there. It resonated with me. So
if he does it, that's his name. The rat bastard.
That rat bastard.
Gosh, why would you say that?
That's right. I forgot you mentioned that name.
I forgot
that's making me that's making me stressed.
But you know what? I feel like in the third book, because this is the thing too. This is a prequel, right? He's building up to this point in the story, and then hopefully he'll carry on again in 30 years.
I
Who
think
knows?
I
He's
think
gonna
that
write
this is, I think that the 3 books are Kvothe's story, though. I don't think Kvothe's story carries on after these books.
I think he specifically said that it does.
It does. He says the third book, this book will catch them up to modern day, and then there's a trilogy finishing it out.
Which is why I'm so angry. I cannot be 60 when these books are done, okay?
Here's the thing. Here's the only way I'm going to be okay about it. Here's the only way I'm going to be okay about it. Is if he releases the third book, and the reason it's taken 10 years is because he's been building the next 3 as well. So he just goes boom, next year boom, next year boom, which I doubt will happen. But it's what I want to happen.
Isn't this your dad?
No,
that's
Joe. Mr. Joe.
He's in my basement right now, waiting for me to come watch a movie. So we should probably. We can't stay on.
Okay, so yeah, but like, there's so many questions. Why is he in hiding, and who is he hiding from, and or is he not in hiding? Is the entire inn he's created a trap for one of the Chandrian? Or for someone else, because here's the other thing, he's finally agreeing to tell his story to the chronicler, and he's talking about the Chandrian a lot.
Yeah, true. He is.
Yeah. He's saying their name,
but he doesn't say it at all until that moment.
Cinder.
He says
Cinder a lot.
Cinder isn't the real name, right?
I know, but it could be. I don't know that.
I don't think it's a trap. And
they're also saying Kvothe a lot, so that could be the. I don't know.
Or what if he's trying to lure them into the inn so that he can take them out?
Here's the thing: if this doubles up with the other theory, is that if Kvothe is a Chandrian, and now he's repeatedly saying his name over and over again to lure
and he's bringing the Emir to him.
Ooh. I don't freaking know. Just give us book.
But here's a question though, because I feel like out of all of this conflict here, there's another layer where they talk about the Skinwalkers.
Yeah, but that's
right, and that seems to be like
the next step,
an overarching.
Same with like the Scrael. Like all of a sudden the Scrael are coming down.
Yeah, exactly. Which is kind of the same. They seem to be kind of related, right? The Skinwalkers. It's almost like,
was that you just burped, or you just had a realization? I'm not sure.
Because hear me. I'm gonna talk this out to you because I think I just realized something, and it may be nothing. So, in the second book,
take note, Rothfuss.
Rothfuss.
Take notes. Take notes, Patty.
So they talk about Felurian, right, and how it was one world. It was one world, and then they made the other world.
Stole the moon.
Right, and that's basically like these realms are separated, right, with the gray stones, the doors of stone, and now suddenly things from the Fae are
coming in
his world.
Yeah,
like what if he gets the moon back and reunites that with Diane, and then the world. I know Jared just got it too. I have the chills. So that's the issue now.
It seems like it seems like that would have started happening a lot sooner,
because the realms are like.
So what if then he's hiding from Felurian for never returning to her?
So he doesn't have to have sex. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why would he do that? Felurian's the big bad. She just wants to have sex with him to death.
Felurian fell the 8th Chandrian.
To be fair, that actually kind of is interesting.
The doors of bone.
I can't even with that. I can't.
What is it? Heart of stone?
Oh my gosh. Hard on stone?
Heart of bone?
Heart of stone.
Hard on stone. Yeah, that's
great. Anyway, that theory is good though, Nate. I like that theory a lot.
That's an interesting theory.
That is a good theory, but that also leads me to something I wanted to talk about. How do we feel about all the sex in book 2? Because a lot of people were turned off by it. A lot of people got upset and said, "Oh, this used to be so family friendly, and now there's a bunch of sex in it." I don't think the books were ever really family friendly.
I don't think they were family friendly. Explicit either.
But but there obviously wasn't. There was a little bit of maturity increase from book 1 to 2. That being said, I think it was handled pretty tastefully.
I don't feel like there was anything like super explicit, though. That's the thing. It
talked about sex a lot. It said breasts a lot. But
Jared, I feel like you're the most innocent of this group, and I say that with the best, but I feel like I'm a little jaded. Like I say the fuck word and it doesn't affect me, but I feel like if you were to read that, it would affect you differently. So how did those chapters feel to you? Were they super explicit? Because I didn't think they were.
Did it turn you on?
Jared, how did you feel when you read those chapters?
Did you get those? Did you get those doors of stone?
He's blushing right now so hard. Okay, you don't. Jared, message me after the show. We'll talk. It's fine.
No, go. You go first.
I definitely they are more
mature.
Mature, yeah. I would definitely say that it is. But altogether too, it is pretty brief. Because it's just that time when he's in with Florian.
So it's with Florian. When he gets out, the innkeeper or the barista,
and then with the Adam.
And then there's a lot of sex in the Adam as well.
That's true.
Right. That being said, it's never explicit, and I did appreciate how he always used like euphemisms to describe sex, like, I would use the 1,000 fingers technique.
Yeah, which is funny.
Which puts an image in your head, but he's never saying, I put the peen in the vagine.
There were no throbbing members or quivering breasts, which I appreciated.
Which is somehow like the writer's go-to, which I don't ever understand.
From someone who has to fast forward a lot in some of the books that I read.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm kind of a prude, but I didn't mind. I didn't mind it at all in these books. I thought it was a natural progression. I can understand how some people might have gotten a little upset of that, like, well, this really wasn't in the first book, but now he's gotten older and he's boning. I can understand how some people might have been taken off guard, but I think that it was handled pretty well, and I also think it's pretty important to his story.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately kind of where I went with it too. Is that like it was generally something that I was kind of hoping for it to be over. When I was like reading it, I'm like, oh, it's this part, and I don't really, like. It definitely did put me off, but at the same time too, like, I think you write stuff like that into a book because that's the sort of feeling you're supposed to get, right? Is that
especially with Florian, it's kind of uncomfortable. It's similar to Matt in The Wheel of Time, getting
raped essentially. A bunch. Yeah. Christina, I know Christina, when my sister who read it, she was uncomfortable and she didn't like those scenes at all. And I've also had people, I've read things online where it's basically a 14-year-old like bragging about how good they are at sex for a chapter.
Yeah.
Which made me kind of turn off as well. But when I reread them, they're still beautifully written and they're really not good. Really like where he talks about how there's a line that's probably really cheesy, but he talks about how Florian is like he'd seen pictures of a flame, and meeting Florian was like being in presence of the fire, right?
Yeah.
And like how the difference was.
Yeah,
I love that he explains.
This is a good point because this is pretty comparable to exploring the sexuality of Obi-Wan, right? Does it actually? No, I'm saying it's a good contrast. We don't care about Obi-Wan's sexuality because that has nothing to do with the story of Star Wars. But with Quoth's story, I don't think that the mature aspect was pointless.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I think it was very important to his story.
especially if Bast is his child.
Well, and for example, that's how he gets his cloak, right? He gets this cloak of the
because he was real good at sex.
His shade.
He was so good at sex that she gave him a shade.
He was so good at sex.
What I liked about it is that it explains that this woman is so like lustful and just kills men with desire, but then it comes down to it and he realizes
he outsmarts her.
Actually doesn't kill people with desire. She just loves them so fully and wants to be with them so fully that it consumes men. It just absolutely consumes them.
She doesn't understand mortals as well. But I also really like how it leads to him showing his brightness and outsmarting her. And I love the way he gets out of it. It's brilliant.
Like, I've never laid with another woman, so I don't know.
I know his song that he makes.
And he's like,
her love is adequate.
Suffice. And she's like, suffice. That's like my favorite part. She like loses her mind over it.
It's a nice callback too to like traditional folklore and tales of that kind, which is
true.
You find in a lot of stories, but
where they get lured away by the fairies or
sirens.
Yeah,
it's a pretty common trope, and they handled it really well. I thought.
That was so good.
I don't need to see characters going to the bathroom, but Daddy Lannister getting shot by Tyrion while pooping was done as part of the story.
That's fantastic.
That's fair. That's a fair point.
That was back when the show was good.
Yeah, I know, right? So what do you guys think about the Sith? Because
the Sith?
In that part,
the what?
The Sith.
Those are the bad the like Fae, right?
They surround the Cathay and kill anybody that comes near it.
Yeah, I think it's like SIDTH.
Right. Well, it's SITHE, but he calls them the Sith.
What do we think about
he pronounces it the Sith in the book.
Sure. I listen to the audiobooks.
I love the idea of the Cathay. Just
but
malevolent.
They're supposed to surround the tree and kill anybody who gets within miles of the tree. So where were they? How did he get to the Cathay without being seen, killed, or hunted down?
He didn't already have his shade, right? That was after.
No, he did not. Not until he comes back.
I don't know.
That's a question I have too.
That's one of those like destiny things, like a bunch of things intervened because Bast even brings it up. He's like, I don't know how you got there, and I don't know how you got out. Like that something.
And his
happened.
Reaction is really.
I don't think.
No, he goes very nuclear.
I don't think that it was an accident.
He's like, you don't lie to me about this. You don't lie to me about talking to the Cathay. People. Kingdoms fall when they talk to the Cathay. You don't lie to me about this. So he like loses it on him. He doesn't even believe him because of the fact that these Sith are supposed to kill anybody who came anywhere near him. So, what are the possibilities that the Emir or the Chandrian helped him get to the tree? Or manipulated him to the tree.
Or he is a Chandrian.
Or he is a Chandrian. He's been, don't you know, you've been the Chandrian all along.
Well,
one of my theories about Kvothe is that the Chandrian were using him to find information on themselves that they could destroy. Because he's obsessed with them so much that he's able to get into places that they can't and find the information that they can later destroy. So that could go along with that if they send him to the Cathay. But I don't know.
I've never understood how he got to the Cathay with these warriors supposedly killing anybody that went near.
I don't know. I don't think the Chandrian are omnipresent though. They're not omnipresent.
I don't think they are either.
Jared, did you have something to say about that?
I was just going to say basically that that I kind of felt like there was some sort of manipulation of some kind going on at that point because it doesn't really tell you how he does it, and so I kind of had always just felt like there was, someone or maybe like.
Or just like
Florian doesn't even know that he went and talked to him, right? So it's like
Florian does, and she checks to make sure that he isn't marked and that his eyes are fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. And she just cuddles him and like holds him for like.
She just sexes him until he's okay again, which
pretty much though, like.
It could be one of those moments of like fate where like everything happened perfectly and no one saw him and they were all facing the wrong way or something,
Or
I mean, it's
again,
possible.
it could be him being an unreliable narrator.
Could
Right?
be.
Maybe
Could be
he doesn't
kills it.
understand like the
Could-
folklore around the Cathay, so he puts this into his story, not realizing that Bass is going to be able to call his bullshit, basically.
That's a good point.
But then he describes it perfectly, though. So, I mean,
Bass,
Yeah,
would Bass
well-
have seen it in person?
I don't know. That's a good
No,
point.
not if what he
I
said
like his
was
response to Bass though. Like, but all these bad things are supposed to happen. He's like, but haven't they already happened?
Yeah.
Hasn't what I've done caused a bunch of bad stuff?
bringing the realms back together.
I killed a king and I saved a princess from a sleeping Barrow King. Maybe that's the king he kills. Is the Barrow King?
Maybe actually,
It wouldn't be very.
people think that Ari is that lost princess.
Right. Ari is definitely nobility.
Yeah.
The thing is that
We
I mean,
haven't
it's
talked
so
about
hard
Ari.
to tell what still needs to happen for him, because he even says in the first book when he's at university, he says
Tim's on his phone right now.
it's on my I'm on my phone. My laptop, I couldn't get my headset to for some reason work. It was being weird. But he talks about in university how I had like all these like things that happened to me, and I made up a bunch of stories about myself too. He's like, I just threw them out there because I thought it'd be fun, you know. So saving the princess might just be one that he completely made up, or
No,
you know.
Rothfuss has said he's written that chapter already, though.
Has he?
That's the thing that happens. Yeah, he in one of his Q&As he was like, "Yeah, I just barely finished writing the Barrow King sequence, and it was really good." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm excited."
How long ago was that? Did he say that?
Oh, months ago.
Okay, so we're probably halfway through the book. Another 10 years.
Oh, stop.
I think it's close. I think it's next year sometime.
Alan, I love that you say that, but I have been
I love that you're
on
close.
this train since like 2012, and every year things come out, and I'm like, oh, I bet it's close. It sounds like it's close. I've heard things from Patrick Rothfuss, and I bet it's close. And you've been on here what, three years maybe?
No,
5, 4. You'll lose faith.
it's been a long time. It's been like 8.
Just you wait.
That's the thing, though, that literally every year he does something to like, hey, I'm like getting close,
Sweet
hey, and
summer
then
child.
nothing.
I had one more question I wanted to discuss on my list of notes. And it deals with the Cathay, not the Chantrine. One of the things the Cathay says to Kvothe is, because he asks about the Amir, and he says, "Stick with the mayor, and he will lead you to the door of the Amir." He says the mayor has already met one of the Amir, but he doesn't know it. And he says, "Stick with the mayor, and he'll lead you to their door." And then he laughs and says, "Oh, you'll understand that joke eventually." And you're like, "What joke?"
What if his remember the
Brendan.
guy in the first book who's like, oh, I would sponsor you, but I have too many.
I can't remember his name.
And he's like, oh, well, I'll introduce you to this mayor friend I have. Maybe he wants a sponsor.
Oh, Theft.
Yeah,
Count
yeah.
Theft, I think.
Count Theft. The other possibility is Brennan, the guy he meets and plays tack with a bunch in the mayor's city.
Isn't that definitely Lord Ash though in Cinder?
I
think
think
he
he is.
Brennan's the same one.
Yeah, I thought that was like really clear.
Okay.
That's
Because
what I've
they
always
also
thought
talk
it
about how he beats them, right? And he beats them at that stones or tack game consistently. And it's always talking about how it's like the way you play the beautiful game, not necessarily like the outcome, right?
But because
I think he has a staff of Ash, or like his like.
He does have a walking,
and that's why he calls him Master Ash.
But so does the guy that Tim was talking about. That his friend magician, his friend musician, also has a walking staff.
I think it's
Master Threat.
Count Threat.
Something. But the thing with I don't know. I don't think that Brandon is Cinder, because Cinder is surprised when he sees.
You're right.
At a camp when he friggin' calls down lightning at the tree.
Was that Brendan or Brennan, whatever his name is, was an Amir.
Brennan, yeah.
Brennan.
Can we talk about the scene where he freaking voodoo dolls an entire camp of like?
Yeah,
oh,
that's
Dude, that
very
scene,
creepy.
I mean,
oh
if I
my
didn't
god!
have
And
a
he's like,
hard on for the
I've
DeLorean,
stabbed
for
it.
that
I've
part.
stabbed it
Holy
so many
crap.
times. I've stabbed it so many times it no longer resembles a body, and so it's taking more like
concentration. And Tempe just being like.
Just in horror the whole time.
In horror, yeah.
So freaking
That's a really
cool.
great. That's one of the.
And then he
great
literally links the arrow to the tree and has the
Oh.
lightning.
literally calls down lightning on it. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So
I'm
good.
getting goosebumps again.
I
That's
need to
my
read it,
favorite part of the entire series. The sheer amount of power he shows right there is just incredible.
And again,
Oh
he
my
doesn't have
God.
to pause the action at all to tell you the science about what he's doing because you know how the magic works.
Oh, it's so good.
And the very ending where he slaughters the fake Adimaru is just
that is hard. That is
such
hard
a savage
chapter.
scene. Oh,
I mean, I just remember reading that the first time and being like, "Wait, what? These people are like."
I loved
the way he writes it so that you don't
the slow burn where you're like where you like he's known the entire time, but the reader doesn't know. But you start picking up on little things where you're like, these aren't a Adimaru. Oh,
like they're like,
oh,
we kidnapped
from
two children
the
for you to
beginning.
have here.
Yeah, those are hard chapters. But
He's
again,
like, I want both of them. And then he murders everybody in the camp. Oh my gosh.
Again, it's like one of those moments where you see the good, right? Like he's that person, and then the town where he takes him back.
He's
like, these are not a Adimaru. I'm a Adimaru.
So, and that's one of the hardest scenes I struggled with was when he finally comes back and he saved all this gold for the mayor, and his wife is like, oh, I hate Adimaru, and he's like, they are not that, and he like loses it, and he's like, I'm a Adimaru, and the mayor's like, oh, then I have to let you go.
And that's the other question. He can't stick with the mayor, so why would the Cathay even bring it up?
Because he's already led him to somebody who's the Emir.
That brings up the rings too, because there's riddles about rings that they talk about and how they like how Taborlin the Great has the different rings on his fingers. One of bone, and he does have a bone ring.
He does have a bone ring.
A theory that I don't like is that Quoth is Taborlin the Great, and that somehow
which just doesn't make sense to me,
because time works differently in the Fey realm, he somehow travels back in time and becomes Taborlin the Great. I think I would not enjoy time travel in this story.
I wouldn't either. No, the rings have no power, they just show worth.
The rings of battle.
Well, but in the riddle they seem to, right? Because they're like basically if you find a name, right? Like you know the name of stone.
Yeah.
To show your mastery, you have a ring of stone. You have a ring of air, a ring of fire. So they're basically showing the things he's mastered. But one of them is bone, which is interesting, and one of them is none, which is interesting as well. So like, what is this mystery ring that you?
The ring of none.
Anyways,
which I love that Fella actually creates her little bone of like her little ring of stone.
That was the other one of the reasons why people thought Fella might be the 8th Chandrian is because of her mastery of stone. She's obviously going to be instrumental in opening the four-way door.
Interesting.
I don't think it's a literal door of stone. That's the thing. I think it's like
it could be death. He literally says the doors of stone leading to death in the first book.
Yeah. So
he also references doors leading to sleep and leading to memory and all of these other things. So
I just need to know what's going on.
And the Greystones again, the standing Greystones, like the Waystones and or the portal stones, they're different in every
I think are the closest it's going to be. Like I honestly think it's the Waystones. He's brought them into the book so many times. And he's only given us so little lore on them that I think they're just so instrumental.
Yeah, it would make sense that he does something that somehow links the two worlds again, and that's why things are spilling in. But it seems like that would have started happening earlier. Like the Spider Boys seems like a new development, and it seems like he's been hiding for a while.
I mean, again, I think that's where he's making it seem like he's been hiding a while.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? Like maybe we don't understand.
Well, no,
because he was supposed to be dead, though.
Because Chronicler also says that that no one's heard of Quoth for a while. The other theory about the Quoth Chandrian was in one of the books. There's a line where it was Chronicler talking to a Quoth when he first brings up the Chandrian. Chronicler mentions, and some even say there are rumors of a new Chandrian with red hair who's like fire and stuff like that. And you're like,
I remember that line. Yeah,
I do remember that as well. That's in the first book.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But that could obviously just be people, thinking that Quoth the Bloodless was a Chandrian because of all the crazy stories about him.
There's a
Like,
lot to that.
It can easily be explained away, but it's also there for a reason.
Well,
there's so many hints, man.
Like there's another thing too.
things.
Do you remember with where they talk about the Chronicler and they make him into like a story, right? Where the Chronicler who has his book of whatever and whatever he writes in the book.
Oh yeah, they make it up together.
Yeah, so there's theories
funny.
around that, but also that brings back to Denna with her like spells that she braids right into her hair.
In her hair,
and that's like the language of the knots that was lost from the other culture that he's studying. That I don't remember the name of right now, but that's another one of the magics that I was referencing that you can talk about with David.
So many possibilities.
You guys, I really gotta
I don't
go.
think we're gonna be able to.
Yeah, I gotta go too.
Because it's getting late.
I think we covered pretty much as we could.
Yeah.
Probably more than we could have. Let's be honest.
Yeah, for sure. Alan, when you read a silent regard of silent things, it basically, I thought it was very interesting because it obviously is from Ari's perspective.
Yeah.
But it reads almost like from someone with autism or on the autistic spectrum.
Okay.
Because the way she experiences the world is like that.
Okay.
It's very, very interesting. It's kind of hard to listen to or read because it is written that way. But
he also does the narration himself in the audiobook.
Yeah,
right?
he does. But it's good. It was good. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah, I'm gonna read. I have it already, but
Interesting.
I feel I'm like saving it,
Yeah.
because I know it's not super important, but it's kind of just a day in the life story, and I'm like,
yeah,
I want to read it, but I'm like, I can save it. It'll help bridge the gap,
Yeah.
But, cool. Yeah, no, this has been a total blast. I think those are all the theories that I had, but I'm constantly watching new YouTube videos about more ideas. So, yeah. This has been super fun. Next week, we're talking about all things Brandon Sanderson, and we're going to have guests of Simply Nerdy on the other YouTube channel on the show with the cousins from the other side of my family. But if I think there will be room if anyone else wants to hop on. So if you're caught up on Sanderson, which I'm not even, I haven't read the last Stormlight Archive yet, but I've read everything else.
Read them all.
So.
I think I read them all.
Stuff that was so
we're mostly going to be be Wax and Wayne book 4 thoughts and stuff like that.
I think I read this up to 2 on those, so I probably have to catch up.
But we'll see you next week. We'll be back to Sunday on then. This was special just so Nathan could show up. Jared was also busy on Sunday. So
yes. Cool. But it's good to have both Nate and Tim on here.
Yeah, it's been a blast. I love doing this. And maybe if we have more theories in the future, we can all come with crazy ideas and do another one.
Read up on the one with his father, because that one blew my mind when I read it.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's an interesting one.
Okay. Okay. So we'll see you. We'll see you next week, and that's it. That's all, folks. That's all.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in.
Have a good night.
Bye.
See you.